When a billionaire CEO appears at your door at midnight in her wedding dress, you know someone's world is about to shatter. Ethan Cole never imagined his quiet Tuesday night would end with Vivian Ross, the woman whose signature appears on his paychecks, whose face graces magazine covers, whose wedding tomorrow morning is already trending on social media, standing on his doorstep with mascara-stained cheeks and nowhere else to go. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The security monitor flickered to life at 11:47 p.m., and Ethan Cole's entire world tilted on its axis. He'd been standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing Lily's favorite purple cup, the one with the unicorn that she absolutely refused to drink from if it wasn't perfectly clean, when the doorbell's chime cut through the silence of his small house. His first thought was confusion. His second was concern. Nobody rang doorbells at quarter to midnight unless something was terribly wrong. Ethan dried his hands on the dish towel, his mind already running through possibilities. Wrong address? Emergency with a neighbor? His sister having car trouble again? He crossed the modest living room in 4 strides, the hardwood floor creaking under his weight in that familiar way that usually brought him comfort. Tonight, each creak felt like a warning. He tapped the security screen mounted beside the door, and the image that materialized made his breath catch in his throat. Vivian Ross stood under his porch light. Not an image of Vivian Ross, not someone who looked like her. The actual Vivian Ross, CEO of Technova Industries, the woman whose company employed over 15,000 people, whose net worth was estimated somewhere north of $3 billion, whose wedding to Marcus Ashford III was scheduled to take place in exactly 12 hours and 9 minutes at the Cathedral of St. James before 400 of the world's most powerful people. Ethan knew these details because the entire office had been buzzing about it for weeks. You couldn't walk past a break room without seeing her face on someone's phone. Couldn't check the news without seeing another article about the wedding of the decade. The marketing team had even joked about setting up a betting pool for how many times the ceremony would be interrupted by paparazzi drones. But none of those articles, none of those glossy magazine photos, had prepared him for what he was seeing now. Vivian Ross stood on his doorstep in a dress that probably cost more than his car, ivory silk that caught the porch light and shimmered like moonlight on water. Her dark hair, usually swept into that perfect executive chignon, fell in disheveled waves around her shoulders. But it was her face that made Ethan's hand freeze halfway to the door handle. She'd been crying. Not the delicate, photogenic tears of a bride overwhelmed by joy. These were the tears of someone whose entire world had just collapsed. Her eye makeup had run in dark streaks down her cheeks. Her eyes, those sharp, assessing eyes that had evaluated him across conference tables, that had dissected quarterly reports with surgical precision, were red-rimmed and swollen and utterly lost. She looked up at the camera as if she could see him through it, and her lips moved. The security system didn't have audio, but Ethan could read the words clearly enough. Please. Every instinct in his body screamed that opening this door would change everything, that whatever existed on the other side of this threshold was bigger than his quiet life, bigger than the careful boundaries he'd built around himself and his daughter. That Vivian Ross brought with her a world of complications he'd spent the last 5 years deliberately avoiding. His hand turned the deadbolt anyway. The door swung open, and the November night air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of her perfume, something expensive and subtle that he'd noticed during their late-night project sessions, but had never let himself think about too carefully. Up close, she looked even more devastated. A goddess rendered mortal by catastrophe. "Mr. Cole," she said, and her voice cracked on his name. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." Ethan's mind reeled. They'd worked together for 3 years. She'd promoted him twice, approved his flexible schedule after Lily came into his life, even handwritten a note of congratulations when he'd finalized the adoption. But their relationship had always been professional, cordial, bounded by the vast chasm between their positions in the company hierarchy. They'd spent the last 6 weeks working late nights together on Project Meridian, Technova's most ambitious software launch in a decade. Just the two of them, most nights after the rest of the team had gone home. He'd seen her differently during those sessions, not as the untouchable CEO, but as someone genuinely brilliant, Someone who listened when he explained his coding approach. Someone who laughed at his terrible programmer jokes and admitted she'd once dreamed of being a software engineer instead of climbing the executive ladder. But she'd never come to his home, never crossed that line. "Ms. Ross," he started, then caught himself. "Vivian, what happened? Are you hurt? Should I call someone?" She shook her head, a jerky, desperate movement. "No, please, no, Her breath hitched. "I can't go back there. I can't face them. Any of them. And I know this is completely inappropriate, and I have no right to be here, but I was driving, and I couldn't think of anywhere else that felt real." Real. The word hung between them like a confession. Ethan became acutely aware that he was standing in his doorway in a faded Stanford t-shirt and sweatpants, barefoot, probably smelling like the chicken nuggets he'd made for Lily's dinner. Behind him, the living room bore all the evidence of his actual life. Lily's coloring books scattered across the coffee table, her beloved stuffed elephant sitting on the couch, the Netflix screen frozen on the animated movie they'd been watching before her bedtime. This was his sanctuary, the life he'd built from nothing after his world had imploded 5 years ago. The peaceful, predictable existence he'd fought so hard to create for his daughter. And here was Vivian Ross, asking to step inside it. "You should come in," he heard himself say. Relief flooded her face so completely that Ethan felt something twist in his chest. She stepped across the threshold, and he caught the full view of her dress. Not a wedding gown, he realized now, but something elegant and sophisticated. The rehearsal dinner. She'd fled from the rehearsal dinner. He closed the door behind her, shutting out the night and the world beyond, and tried to process the reality that one of the most powerful women in America was standing in his living room, trembling. "I'm sorry," Vivian said again, wrapping her arms around herself. "God, I'm so sorry. This is insane. I'm insane. I should go. I shouldn't have come here. I don't know what I was thinking." "Vivian?" Ethan kept his voice gentle but firm. "You're here now. Whatever's happening, you obviously need help. Just take a breath, okay?" She nodded, but her breathing was shallow and rapid. Panic attack, Ethan recognized. He'd had enough of them himself after Sarah's death to know the signs. "Come sit down," he said, gesturing to the couch. He quickly scooped up Lily's elephant and coloring books, clearing a space. "I'm going to get you some water. Don't move. Just breathe." He went to the kitchen, his mind racing as he filled a glass from the filter pitcher. This was surreal, completely surreal. In 12 hours, Vivian Ross was supposed to be marrying Marcus Ashford, heir to the Ashford Technologies empire, venture capitalist extraordinaire, the man who looked like he'd been genetically engineered in a lab to appear on the cover of Forbes. The entire tech world had been treating it like a corporate merger disguised as a romance. Technova and Ashford Technologies joining forces through matrimony. The power couple of the decade. Billions in combined assets. Influence that could reshape entire industries. And she'd run. She'd run to him. When Ethan returned to the living room, Vivian was sitting on the edge of his couch, her designer dress utterly incongruous against his well-worn furniture. She'd pulled Lily's elephant into her lap, clutching it like a lifeline, and that small gesture made her seem suddenly, achingly human. He handed her the water. "Drink." She obeyed, and he watched her throat work as she swallowed. Some of the color returned to her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan sat down in the armchair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Vivian stared at the water glass in her hands. "I called off the wedding." The words were simple, but they landed like a bomb. "When?" 3 hours ago, at the rehearsal dinner." She laughed, a broken sound, in front of 200 people. Our families, the board members, half the investors in Silicon Valley. I stood up and I said, "I'm sorry, but I can't do this," and then I walked out. Ethan tried to imagine it, the scene, the shock, the chaos that must have erupted. "And Marcus? He didn't try to stop me." Vivian's voice was hollow. "That's how I knew I was making the right decision. The man I was supposed to marry tomorrow watched me walk away, and his first concern was damage control. I heard him already on the phone with his PR team before I even made it to my car. I'm sorry." "Don't be." She looked up at him then, and Ethan was struck by the clarity in her red-rimmed eyes. "I'm not. I'm terrified, and I've probably just destroyed my professional reputation, and my mother is likely planning my murder as we speak. But I'm not sorry I did it." "Then why are you crying?" The question surprised her. He saw it in the way her expression shifted, became more vulnerable. "Because," Vivian said slowly, "I just walked away from the life I've been building toward since I was 22 years old. The perfect marriage, the perfect merger, the perfect image. Everything I thought I was supposed to want. And I have no idea what comes next." Ethan understood that feeling better than she knew. 5 years ago, he'd been on a completely different path, rising software architect, engaged to Sarah, planning their future. Then Sarah's diagnosis, the brutal 6-month decline, her death, and the discovery that she'd named him guardian of Lily in her will. Sarah's daughter, from a previous relationship, a 4-month-old baby who needed someone to love her. He'd walked away from his trajectory too. Turned down promotions, moved to a smaller house, restructured his entire existence around being a single father to a child who wasn't biologically his, but who had become the center of his universe anyway. "The next part is terrifying," Ethan said. "But it's also where you figure out who you actually are." Vivian's eyes locked onto his, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. "Is that what you did? When you became Lily's father?" So she knew. Of course she knew. Vivian Ross hadn't become CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company by being unobservant. "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "I had to choose between the career I'd planned and the life that needed me. I chose Lily. Some people thought I was crazy. My parents didn't understand. My colleagues assumed I'd sabotaged my own potential. But I've never regretted it. Not once." "She's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," Ethan smiled. "She's asleep right now, down the hall. 5 years old, obsessed with dinosaurs and anything purple, and absolutely fearless in ways that terrify me daily." Vivian's expression softened. "You talk about her the same way during meetings. I noticed. Whenever someone asks about your weekend, your whole face changes. You become someone different, happier." "She's the best part of my life." "I could tell." Vivian set the water glass down on the coffee table, her hands steadier now. "That's part of why I'm here, actually, why I came to you instead of anywhere else." Ethan's pulse quickened. "I don't understand." "These last 6 weeks," Vivian said carefully, "working late on Project Meridian. Just us, most nights. Do you know what I saw?" He shook his head, not trusting his voice. "I saw someone who lives according to his values instead of his ambitions. Someone who restructured his entire career around being present for a little girl who needed him. Someone who codes until midnight, but still leaves exactly at 5:30 every day because that's when Lily gets home from kindergarten, and you won't compromise on that. Not for deadlines, not for bonuses, not even when I offered you the lead architect position that would require more travel." Ethan remembered that conversation. The way Vivian had seemed almost surprised when he'd turned down the promotion. "You could have insisted," he said. "You're the CEO." "I know, but I respected your choice. More than that, I envied it." Vivian's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You know what you love, Ethan. You know what matters to you, and you've built a life around it, regardless of what anyone else thinks you should do. I've spent 15 years building a life around what everyone else expected of me, and I woke up 3 weeks ago and realized I couldn't name a single thing I'd done purely because it made me happy." The vulnerability in her admission made Ethan's chest tighten. "Not even the wedding." "Especially not the wedding." Vivian's laugh was bitter. "Marcus and we're not in love. We've never been in love. It was strategic from the beginning. Our families wanted it, the boards thought it made sense, the investors loved the synergy. We told ourselves that partnership was better than passion anyway. More stable, more rational." "What changed?" She met his eyes, and Ethan saw the truth there before she spoke it. "I did. Watching you, watching the way you live, I started asking myself questions I'd been avoiding for years, like whether strategic partnerships can actually sustain you when you're 60, whether I wanted to spend my life with someone who sees me as an asset instead of a person, whether I was brave enough to want more than what looked good on paper." The air between them felt charged suddenly, heavy with implications. Vivian, I'm not here because I'm in love with you, she said quickly, and Ethan couldn't quite identify the emotion that flashed through him. Relief? Disappointment? I'm not trying to replace one relationship with another. That would be insane and unfair to both of us. I'm here because you're the only person I know who might understand what it feels like to choose the life that's real over the life that's expected. Ethan absorbed this, trying to separate what she was saying from what he was feeling, because he'd be lying to himself if he claimed he hadn't noticed her during those late-night sessions. The way she pulled her hair up when she was concentrating. The brightness of her laugh when she was genuinely amused rather than performing for a boardroom. The careful way she asked about Lily, as if she were truly interested rather than making small talk. He'd noticed, and he'd carefully, deliberately, not let himself feel anything about it. You understand, he said slowly, that coming here, to my house, tonight, this is going to complicate everything. I know. The optics alone. I know, Vivian repeated. Tomorrow, when people can't find me, they're going to start asking questions. Someone will check traffic cameras, security footage. They'll discover I came here. The speculation will be vicious. They'll assume we've been having an affair. Your life will become a circus. Ethan thought of Lily, sleeping peacefully down the hall. His daughter, who'd already lost one mother, who'd finally found stability in their quiet routine. I have to protect her. Of course. Vivian stood abruptly, and Ethan saw the decision forming in her expression. You're right. I wasn't thinking clearly. I should go. I'll find a hotel, somewhere far enough away that... Sit down. The command in his voice surprised them both. Vivian froze. I didn't say you had to leave, Ethan said more gently. I said it would complicate things. But you came here for a reason, and I don't think you should be alone right now. So sit down, and let's figure this out. Vivian sat, and Ethan saw the relief in her shoulders, the way she seemed to deflate slightly. Here's what's going to happen, he said, thinking out loud. You're going to stay here tonight. Guest room. Completely appropriate. In the morning, you're going to face whatever you need to face. Your family, the board, the media. But you're going to do it after you've slept, after you've had time to collect yourself. And if anyone asks about tonight, we tell them the truth. Which is that you were in crisis and you came to a friend. That's all. Nothing more complicated than that. Are we friends? Vivian asked, and there was something searching in her voice. Ethan considered this. I think we might be. Or we could be, if we both want that. I'd like that. She smiled for the first time since arriving, a small, genuine smile that transformed her face. I don't have very many friends, actually. Lots of colleagues, allies, people I network with. But actual friends? People I could call at midnight when my life implodes? That list is disturbingly short. Well, you can add me to it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and Ethan felt the strangeness of the situation settling into something more manageable. Not normal exactly, but survivable. Can I ask you something? Vivian said. Sure. Why did you say yes? Why did you open the door and let me in when you knew how complicated this would be? Ethan thought about it, about the moment he'd seen her face on that security monitor. Because you looked like I felt 5 years ago, like someone whose world had just shattered, who needed someone to see them as human instead of a problem to solve. Someone gave me that grace when Sarah died and I suddenly had an infant daughter. My sister, actually. She showed up, no judgment, just helped. I guess I'm paying it forward. Your sister sounds wonderful. She is. Infuriating, but wonderful. Ethan stood. Come on. I'll show you the guest room. Fair warning, it's small, and Lily uses it as a secondary play area, so there might be some stray Legos. Vivian followed him down the hallway, past Lily's room where soft nightlight glow spilled under the door, to the small guest room at the end. It was indeed modest. A twin bed, a dresser, walls painted a cheerful yellow that Sarah had chosen back when this was going to be a home office. I know it's not what you're used to, Ethan began. It's perfect, Vivian interrupted. She turned to face him in the doorway, and they were suddenly very close in the narrow hallway. Thank you, Ethan, for not turning me away, for not making me explain myself, for just being kind. That's what friends do. Is it? I'm not sure I'd know. The sadness in that admission made Ethan want to pull her into a hug, but he kept his distance. Too soon. Too complicated. Get some sleep, he said instead. There's a bathroom across the hall. I'll leave some towels out. And Vivian? Tomorrow's going to be difficult, but you made your choice, and now you get to live with it. That's both terrifying and liberating. Which one is winning right now? For me, when I chose Lily, the liberation took about 6 months to outweigh the terror. But it did eventually. The terror fades. The rightness of it doesn't. Vivian nodded, absorbing this. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He retreated to his own room, closing the door behind him and leaning against it. His phone sat on the nightstand, conspicuously silent. But he knew that would change. By morning, the world would be searching for Vivian Ross. By afternoon, they might be searching for her here. Ethan climbed into bed but didn't expect to sleep. His mind was too active, spinning through scenarios, implications, consequences. Lily would wake up in 6 hours and find a stranger in their house. He'd have to explain somehow, in 5-year-old terms, why the lady from Daddy's work was here. He stared at the ceiling and tried to convince himself he'd done the right thing, that opening his door to Vivian Ross wouldn't shatter the peace he'd so carefully constructed. Somewhere around 2 a.m., he finally drifted off, his last conscious thought a question. What had Vivian seen in him during those late-night sessions that had made her trust him with this? He woke to the sound of small feet padding across hardwood floors and Lily's voice, bright with curiosity, drifting from the hallway. Daddy, there's a pretty lady in the playroom. Ethan's eyes snapped open. 6:47 a.m. He'd slept through his alarm. He threw on clothes and hurried into the hallway, where Lily stood outside the guest room door in her purple pajamas, her dark curls a mess around her face, clutching her stuffed elephant. Lily, sweetie, you shouldn't... But it was too late. The guest room door opened, and Vivian appeared, looking surprisingly composed for someone who'd been crying 3 hours ago. She'd somehow managed to tame her hair into a loose braid, and she'd washed the makeup from her face. She still wore the rehearsal dinner dress, but she'd wrapped herself in the spare bathrobe Ethan kept in the closet. She looked down at Lily, and Ethan watched his daughter's eyes go wide. You're really pretty, Lily announced with 5-year-old frankness. Are you a princess? Vivian's laugh was startled and genuine. No, sweetheart, definitely not a princess. You look like a princess. You have a princess dress. It's just a fancy dress for a party. Lily considered this seriously. Was it a fun party? No, Vivian said honestly. It actually wasn't fun at all. Oh. Lily's expression turned sympathetic. That's sad. I don't like not fun parties either. One time there was a birthday party with a scary clown, and I cried. Ethan watched this exchange, fascinated. Vivian had knelt down to Lily's level, giving her the kind of serious attention most adults didn't bother with for children. Clowns can be scary, Vivian agreed. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It's okay. Daddy took me home early, and we had ice cream instead. Lily hugged her elephant tighter. Are you Daddy's friend? I am. My name is Vivian. I work with your daddy. At the computer place? Yes, at the computer place. Lily absorbed this, then made a decision. She held out her elephant. This is Mr. Snuggles. He makes me feel better when I'm sad. Do you want to hold him? Ethan watched Vivian's face transform. Something cracked in her expression, some last defense crumbling in the face of his daughter's innocent generosity. I would love to hold Mr. Snuggles, Vivian said, her voice thick. Thank you, Lily. Lily handed over her most prized possession with complete trust, and Vivian clutched the worn elephant like it was made of gold. Ethan saw her eyes begin to glisten. Lily, he said gently, why don't you go get dressed? I'll make breakfast. Pancakes? Chocolate chip? Is there any other kind? Lily grinned and scampered off to her room. The moment her door closed, Vivian's composure shattered. She pressed Mr. Snuggles to her chest and started crying again, quieter than last night, but somehow more devastating. Vivian couldn't finish the sentence. I didn't know... Ethan did hug her then, because she clearly needed it, and because Mr. Snuggles was involved, which somehow made it feel safer. She leaned into him, shaking. Kids see what adults miss, he said quietly. They see when someone's hurting, and they try to help. No strategy, no calculation, just kindness. I've been in boardrooms with world leaders, Vivian whispered against his shoulder. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've given keynote speeches to thousands of people. And a 5-year-old offering me her stuffed elephant is the thing that completely destroys me. She has that effect, Vivian pulled back, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry. I keep falling apart in your house. You're allowed. That's what this space is for. They stood there in the hallway, Vivian still clutching Mr. Snuggles, Ethan acutely aware that somewhere in the world beyond this house, people were probably frantically searching for her. Her phone had been buzzing intermittently from the guest room all night. You should check your messages, he said. I know, I will. Just not yet. Give me a few more minutes in the world where I'm just Vivian holding a stuffed elephant about to eat chocolate chip pancakes with a kind man and his daughter. Ethan smiled. That world lasts until about 8 a.m. Then we have to figure out what to tell everyone. I know. Vivian straightened, some of her CEO composure returning. But until then, can I help with breakfast? They moved to the kitchen together, and Ethan found himself in the surreal position of teaching Vivian Ross how to flip pancakes, while Lily provided enthusiastic commentary from her booster seat. Vivian was terrible at it. She kept flipping too early, creating misshapen disasters, but she laughed at her own incompetence in a way that made Ethan suspect she didn't laugh at herself often. These are the ugliest pancakes I've ever seen, Vivian declared, staring at her latest attempt. They're abstract, Lily insisted, like art. Abstract pancakes. I'm adding that to my resume. They ate together at Ethan's small kitchen table, and he watched Vivian carefully cut her pancake into precise pieces the way Lily did, mirroring his daughter's movements. She asked Lily about kindergarten, about dinosaurs, about Mr. Snuggles' backstory, extensive and involving time travel, apparently. For 30 minutes, the crisis didn't exist. There was just breakfast and conversation, and Lily's delighted giggling when Vivian admitted she didn't know the difference between a Triceratops and a Stegosaurus. Then Vivian's phone buzzed for the 20th time, and reality crashed back in. She checked the screen, and Ethan saw her face pale. What is it? 53 missed calls, 214 text messages. Vivian's voice was hollow. And apparently I'm trending on Twitter. Hashtag #WhereIsVivian is the #1 hashtag in the United States. The world had noticed she was missing, and very soon the world would be coming for her. Vivian stared at her phone screen like it was a live grenade, and Ethan watched the color drain from her face with each successive notification that lit up the display. The cheerful breakfast atmosphere evaporated instantly, replaced by the cold reality of what awaited her beyond these walls. 214 messages, she repeated, her voice barely audible. In 7 hours. Lily looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin, sensing the shift in mood with that uncanny intuition children possessed. Is your phone making you sad? Vivian managed a weak smile. A little bit, yes. You should turn it off. That's what Daddy does when work bothers him during dinner time. Smart advice, Vivian said, but she didn't turn it off. Instead, she scrolled through the messages, her eyes moving rapidly across the screen. Ethan could see her shifting into CEO mode, the vulnerability from moments ago hardening into something more controlled. I need to make some calls, she said abruptly, standing. I'm sorry, I should... Where can I... Use the guest room, Ethan said. Take all the time you need. She disappeared down the hallway, Mr. Snuggles still clutched in her free hand, and Ethan heard the door close with a quiet click. Lily watched her go with solemn eyes. Daddy, is Vivian in trouble? Ethan wiped the syrup from his daughter's face with a napkin, considering how much truth a 5-year-old could handle. She's going through something difficult. Sometimes adults have to make really hard choices, and then they have to deal with what happens after. Like when you chose to be my daddy? The question punched through his chest. Yeah, sweetheart, exactly like that. But that was a good choice. The best choice I ever made. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her pancakes. Ethan cleared the table, his ears straining to catch any sound from down the hall. He could hear Vivian's voice muffled through the door, rising and falling in what sounded like intense conversation. 20 minutes later, she emerged. She'd changed somehow, still wearing the bathrobe over her dress, but her posture was different, straighter, more rigid. The CEO armor was fully back in place. "I need to go back," she announced. "My mother is threatening to hospitalize me for a mental breakdown. The board has called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. Marcus is apparently telling people I had a psychotic episode brought on by pre-wedding stress. And someone leaked to the press that I left the rehearsal dinner in my car alone, heading east, which means they're going to start checking traffic cameras and security footage. And eventually, they'll find you here," Ethan finished. "Yes." Vivian's jaw tightened. "Which means I need to control the narrative before it controls me. I'm going to give a statement, tell them the truth, that I ended the engagement, that it was my decision, made with complete clarity. I'll take full responsibility." "What about coming here? What will you tell them about that?" Vivian met his eyes. "Nothing. If asked, I'll say I spent the night at a hotel. I won't mention you or Lily. I won't bring this world into that chaos." Something in Ethan rebelled at the idea of being her secret, but he understood the logic. Lily's safety came first. Always. "Okay," he said, "but you should know. If they're tracking your car, they probably already know you came to this neighborhood. It's only a matter of time before someone puts it together. Then I'll deal with it when it happens, but I won't volunteer the information." Lily wandered over, still holding her plate. "Do you have to go?" The question seemed to cut through Vivian's defenses. She knelt down again, meeting Lily at eye level. "I do, sweetheart. I have some things I need to take care of. Will you come back?" Vivian glanced up at Ethan, a question in her eyes. He gave a small nod. Whatever was happening, whatever complications were coming, he'd meant what he said about friendship. "I'd like to," Vivian told Lily. "If that's okay with you and your daddy." "It's okay with me. You can come for dinner. Daddy makes really good spaghetti. And you can hold Mr. Snuggles again, if you need to." "That's a very generous offer. Thank you." Vivian stood, and Ethan saw her blinking rapidly, fighting back emotion. She handed him the stuffed elephant. "I should get dressed. My actual clothes from last night are probably wrinkled disasters, but I'll get you something to wear," Ethan said. "Sarah's things. I kept some of her basics. You're about the same size." He went to his bedroom closet, to the plastic bins in the back where he'd stored Sarah's clothes. He hadn't been able to give them away, even after 5 years. Some kind of sentimentality he couldn't quite explain. Now he was grateful for it. He selected a simple outfit, jeans, a soft gray sweater, nothing flashy. When he returned to the living room, Vivian took the clothes with something like reverence. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for last night, for this morning, for not making me feel like I'm crazy." "You're not crazy. You're brave." "I don't feel brave. I feel terrified." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." She smiled, a real smile this time, and disappeared into the guest room to change. When she emerged 15 minutes later, she looked completely different. The makeup was gone, her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and Sarah's clothes fit her almost perfectly. She looked younger somehow, less intimidating, more human. "How do I look?" she asked. "Like someone who's ready to face the world," Ethan said. "Liar, but I appreciate it." Her own clothes were folded neatly over her arm, the rehearsal dinner dress that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. She stared at it for a moment, then looked up at him. "Can I leave this here? I don't want to see it again, ever." "Of course." She handed him the dress, and Ethan took it carefully, aware that he was holding physical evidence of the moment her life had changed. He laid it over the back of the couch while Vivian gathered her phone and her clutch purse. "My car is 2 blocks away," she said. "I parked at that elementary school. Didn't want anyone seeing it directly in front of your house." Smart thinking, even in crisis mode. Crisis mode is when I think the clearest, apparently. She took a deep breath. "Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to drive to my apartment, change into appropriate clothes, and then I'm going to hold a press conference at noon. By tonight, this will either be the best decision I've ever made or career suicide. Possibly both." "Vivian." Ethan stepped closer. "Whatever happens, you made the right choice. Maybe not the easy one, but the right one. Hold on to that." She nodded, not quite meeting his eyes. "Walk me out?" They moved to the front door together, Lily trailing behind them. On the porch, Vivian paused, looking out at the quiet suburban street. It was Saturday morning, and neighbors were emerging to get their newspapers, walk their dogs, start their weekend routines. Normal life, continuing obliviously. "This is nice," Vivian said softly. "This whole world you've built. It's really nice." "It's enough," Ethan said. "That's all it needs to be." She turned to face him fully. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Those nights working together on Project Meridian, did you notice the way I looked at you sometimes?" Ethan's heart rate picked up. "I tried not to." "Why?" "Because you were engaged. Because you're my boss. Because it would have been inappropriate on about 17 different levels." "But you did notice." It wasn't a question. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I noticed." Vivian's expression softened. "I thought I was going crazy. Thought I was projecting something that wasn't there. But you felt it too. Feeling it and acting on it are different things." "I know, and I'm not asking you to act on anything. I just needed to know I wasn't imagining it." She glanced back at Lily, who was watching them with intense curiosity. "You have a whole life here, a daughter who needs stability. I respect that. Whatever I'm feeling, whatever this is, it doesn't get to disrupt what you've built." "What are you feeling?" Ethan asked, even though he knew he shouldn't. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "I'm feeling like I've been sleepwalking for 15 years, and working with you these past 6 weeks was the first time I woke up. I'm feeling like I built an entire empire but forgot to build a life. I'm feeling like maybe I don't know who I am outside of being CEO, and that terrifies me more than any board meeting ever has." "That's a lot to feel." "It is. And none of it is your responsibility to fix." "I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to be your friend." "My friend," she tested the word. "I like that. I need that. Someone who sees me as Vivian instead of as Vivian Ross, CEO, billionaire, power broker, strategic asset." "I see you," Ethan said simply. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Neither of them was ready to fully examine. Vivian's phone buzzed again, shattering the moment. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. "Good luck with the press conference." "Thank you. I'll need it." She started down the porch steps, then turned back. "Ethan, when this all blows over, when things calm down, I might actually take Lily up on that dinner invitation, if the offer stands." "It stands." "Good." She smiled, and for a moment she looked genuinely happy. "I'll see you Monday at work, assuming I still have a job." "You're the CEO. I'm pretty sure you can't fire yourself." "The board might have other ideas," she waved at Lily. "Bye, sweetheart. Take care of Mr. Snuggles for me." "I will," Lily called back. Ethan and Lily watched from the porch as Vivian walked down the street toward the elementary school, her figure growing smaller with each step. She didn't look back. When she finally disappeared around the corner, Lily tugged on Ethan's hand. "I like her, Daddy." "Me too, kiddo." "Is she going to be okay?" Ethan thought about the press conference awaiting her, the board meeting, the public scrutiny that was about to descend. "I hope so." They went back inside, and Ethan tried to return to normal Saturday routines, cleaning up breakfast, starting laundry, helping Lily build an elaborate dinosaur habitat out of blocks in the living room. But his mind kept drifting to Vivian, wondering what she was facing, how she was holding up. At 11:45, he turned on the television. The news was already covering it, speculation running wild about Vivian Ross's sudden disappearance after canceling her wedding. Analysts debated whether this indicated mental health issues, cold feet, or something more scandalous. Marcus Ashford had released a carefully worded statement expressing concern for Vivian's well-being and asking for privacy during this difficult time. The subtext was clear. He was positioning himself as the stable, concerned partner while she looked erratic and unstable. Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. He'd seen Vivian last night. She wasn't unstable. She was someone who'd finally found the courage to stop pretending. At noon exactly, the news feed cut to a live shot. Vivian stood behind a podium in what looked like Technova's main conference room, wearing a crisp navy suit, her hair in that perfect CEO chignon. She looked composed, professional, and completely in control. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady. "I'm here to address the speculation surrounding my decision to cancel my wedding to Marcus Ashford. First, let me be clear. This was entirely my choice, made with complete clarity and conviction. I am not having a mental health crisis. I am not experiencing cold feet or pre-wedding jitters. I simply recognized that I was about to marry someone for the wrong reasons, and I chose to stop before making a mistake that would affect both our lives." The reporters erupted with questions, but Vivian held up a hand. "Marcus Ashford is a good man. I respect him enormously, but respect is not the same as love, and partnership is not the same as passion. We were building a merger, not a marriage, and I realized I wanted more than that." Ethan leaned forward, watching her face on the screen. She was doing it, telling the truth, refusing to hide behind corporate speak or careful PR messaging. "For the past 15 years, I have made every major life decision based on what was strategic, what was smart, what would advance my career and strengthen my company. I have been very good at that. Technova has thrived under my leadership. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask myself what I actually wanted. What would make me happy as a person, not just successful as a CEO?" A reporter shouted a question about whether there was someone else. Vivian's expression didn't change. "No, this is not about another relationship. This is about my relationship with myself. I'm 37 years old, and I woke up 3 weeks ago and realized I couldn't name a single major decision I'd made purely because it brought me joy. That's not Marcus's fault, it's mine, and I'm taking responsibility for it." Another reporter asked about the board, whether her position was secure. Vivian's smile was thin. "The board and I will have conversations about the future of my role at Technova. But I want to be clear, I am fully capable of leading this company. My personal life does not impact my professional judgment. If anything, having the courage to make difficult personal choices has clarified my priorities and strengthened my resolve." She took a few more questions, deflecting the invasive ones with practiced ease before wrapping up the press conference. As she stepped away from the podium, Ethan saw something in her expression. Relief, maybe, or exhaustion, or both. The news coverage continued, analysts already dissecting every word she'd spoken. Ethan turned off the television. "Is Vivian on TV?" Lily asked, looking up from her dinosaurs. "She was. She had to tell a lot of people something important." "Did she do good?" "Yeah, sweetie, she did really good." The rest of Saturday passed in a strange limbo. Ethan kept checking his phone, half expecting a message from Vivian, but nothing came. He took Lily to the park, made dinner, supervised bath time, read 3 chapters of their current bedtime story. Normal routine, but his thoughts kept circling back to that press conference, to Vivian's words about waking up after 15 years of sleepwalking. He understood that feeling more than he'd admitted to her. After Sarah died, he'd spent months on autopilot, going through the motions of caring for Lily because he had to, not because he felt capable. It had taken him almost a year to feel like he was truly present in his own life again. Sunday arrived with no word from Vivian. Ethan tried not to read too much into the silence. She had an entire crisis to manage, a board meeting to prepare for, a life to rebuild. She didn't owe him updates, but Monday morning, when he arrived at Technova's offices, the entire building was buzzing with speculation. People clustered in groups, voices lowered, everyone discussing Vivian's canceled wedding and what it meant for the company. Ethan kept his head down, heading straight for his desk in the software development wing. His team lead, Marcus, different Marcus, thankfully, stopped by his cubicle before Ethan had even logged into his computer. "Did you see the press conference?" Marcus asked, perching on the edge of Ethan's desk. "Wild stuff. I never would have guessed she'd actually go through with canceling. Everyone thought it was just cold feet, that she'd change her mind." "Seems like she knew what she wanted," Ethan said neutrally. "Or didn't want. Can you imagine? Billions of dollars between them, and she just walks away. My wife thinks there must be someone else, says nobody cancels a wedding like that unless they've already got another prospect lined up." Ethan's hands tightened on his keyboard. "Maybe she just didn't want to marry someone she wasn't in love with." Marcus laughed. "Love. Right. At that level, it's all business anyway. Love is for people like us who can afford to be idealistic." Before Ethan could formulate a response that wouldn't get him in trouble with HR, his desk phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and froze. Extension 001. the CEO's direct line. I should get this, he told Marcus, who raised his eyebrows but retreated. Ethan picked up the phone with a slightly trembling hand. This is Ethan Cole. Ethan. Vivian's voice was professional, controlled. Do you have a moment? I need to see you in my office. Of course. When? Now, if possible. I'll be right up. He hung up and stood, acutely aware of the eyes on him as he walked toward the elevators. Being summoned to the CEO's office was unusual enough under normal circumstances. Today, with everyone watching Vivian's every move, it would be noticed. The executive floor was quieter, more controlled. Vivian's assistant, Margaret, waved him through immediately. She's expecting you. Go right in. Ethan knocked once, then entered Vivian's office. It was his first time here, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture, and awards lining one wall. Vivian stood by the window, looking out, her posture rigid. She turned when she heard the door close. Thank you for coming. Of course. Ethan stayed near the door, uncertain. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm not sure. She gestured to the chairs facing her desk. Please, sit. This is actually a professional conversation, not a personal one. Mostly. They sat, and Ethan noticed the dark circles under her eyes, partially concealed by makeup. She hadn't been sleeping. The board met yesterday afternoon, Vivian began without preamble. 3 hours of discussion about whether my personal decisions make me unfit to lead this company, whether canceling my wedding demonstrates instability or poor judgment. That's insane. That's corporate politics. Her smile was tired. Ultimately, they voted to keep me on as CEO, but it was closer than I would have liked, 7-5. And it came with conditions. What kind of conditions? I need to demonstrate over the next 6 months that my focus remains entirely on Technova. No distractions, no scandals, no further evidence of what they termed erratic personal behavior. Basically, I'm on probation for being human. Ethan felt anger coil in his stomach. So they're punishing you for having the courage to be honest about what you wanted. They're protecting their investment. I understand the logic, even if I hate it. Vivian's eyes met his. Which brings me to why you're here. Project Meridian. What about it? The launch is in 4 weeks. It's our most critical product release in years. And it's not where it needs to be. We're behind schedule. The user interface still has bugs, and the integration with our existing systems is causing problems we didn't anticipate. Ethan knew all this. He'd been raising these concerns in meetings for weeks. I'm restructuring the team, Vivian continued, bringing in fresh eyes, new leadership, and I want you to take over as lead architect. The offer he'd turned down 2 months ago. Ethan's mind raced. Vivian, I told you. I know what you told me. I know your constraints around Lily, around your schedule. I'm not asking you to compromise on that. She leaned forward. I'm proposing something different. You lead the technical side, but you do it on your terms. You work from home when you need to. You leave at 5:30. You miss morning meetings if they conflict with drop-off. We make the job fit your life instead of forcing your life to fit the job. That's not how leadership positions work. It's not how they've traditionally worked. But I'm the CEO, and I'm willing to try something new. You're the best architect I've got, Ethan. You understand the code better than anyone. You see problems before they become disasters, and you communicate complex concepts in ways the non-technical team can actually understand. I need that on this project. Ethan wanted to say yes. The opportunity was everything he'd worked toward before Sarah's death, before Lily. But accepting it would mean more visibility, more scrutiny. And if anyone discovered that Vivian had spent Saturday morning in his house, eating pancakes with his daughter, the optics would be devastating for both of them. People are already talking, he said carefully, about your personal life, about the wedding. If you promote me now, right after everything that happened, let them talk. Vivian's voice was firm. I'm not going to let fear of speculation prevent me from making good business decisions. You're qualified for this role. You've earned it. The timing is coincidental. Is it? The question hung between them. Vivian's expression softened slightly. You asked me what I learned from our late-night sessions, she said quietly. What I saw in you. It wasn't just how you prioritized Lily, though that was part of it. It was how you approached problems. You don't look for the flashy solution or the one that makes you look good. You look for what actually works. You're honest about limitations, realistic about timelines, and you give credit to other people's ideas even when they build on your foundation. That's just basic professionalism. No, it's not. Not in this industry. Most people are so busy protecting their territory and building their personal brands that they forget the actual goal is to build something that works. You never forgot that. And that's what I need on this project, someone who cares more about the outcome than the glory. Ethan absorbed this, torn between professional ambition and practical concerns. What about the travel? The last time you offered this position, it required quarterly trips to our satellite offices. We'll minimize it. 1 trip per quarter max, and we'll schedule them around your custody arrangement. If we can't make it work, we'll send someone else. I'm serious about this, Ethan. The job adapts to you, not the other way around. And if I say no, then you say no, and we remain colleagues, and I find someone else. But I hope you don't. I think you could do amazing things with this opportunity, and I think you deserve the chance to find out. Ethan thought about Lily, about the stability he'd fought to give her, about the promotion he'd refused because it would have meant less time with her. But Vivian was offering something different, a chance to grow professionally without sacrificing what mattered most. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course. Take until Wednesday. Talk it over with whoever you need to talk it over with. Just know that the offer is genuine, and it's based entirely on your qualifications. Okay? Ethan stood. Thank you for the opportunity, and for Saturday, for not making me feel like I'd crossed a line by letting you stay. You didn't cross any lines. You were kind when I needed kindness. I won't forget that. He moved toward the door, then paused. Vivian? That press conference. What you said about waking up after 15 years, that took real courage. Or real stupidity. I'm still not sure which. Courage, Ethan said firmly. Definitely courage. He left her office and returned to his desk, his mind spinning. The offer was tempting, more than tempting, but beneath it lay a complicated web of implications he couldn't ignore. If he accepted, would people assume it was favoritism? Would they speculate about his relationship with Vivian? Would it put Lily at risk of unwanted attention? That evening, after Lily was in bed, he called his sister Rachel. She picked up on the second ring. Please tell me you're calling with good gossip, she said immediately, because I've had a day that requires vicarious drama. What do you know about Vivian Ross? The CEO who canceled her billionaire wedding? Everyone knows about Vivian Ross. It's all over the news. Why? Ethan took a breath. She offered me a promotion today. Lead architect on our biggest project. That's amazing. Why do you sound like someone died? Because the timing is weird. She offered it right after this whole wedding disaster, and I'm trying to figure out if it's a genuine promotion or if there's something else going on. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Wait, Ethan, where did she go? After she canceled the wedding, the news said she disappeared for several hours. He should have known his sister would put it together. Rachel had always been too perceptive for comfort. She came here, he admitted. She showed up at my house at midnight crying and asked if she could stay. Oh my God. It's not what you're thinking. She needed a safe place, and she thought of me. That's all. That's all? Ethan, she's a billionaire CEO. She could have gone to any 5-star hotel, any one of 100 luxury properties, but she came to you. We've been working together closely. She knew I'd understand. Or she has feelings for you. Rachel, I'm serious. People don't show up at your door at midnight unless they trust you on a level that goes beyond professional. And now she's offering you a promotion? Come on, you're smart enough to see the pattern. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Even if that were true, and I'm not saying it is, it doesn't change the fact that I have to decide about this job based on what's right for me and Lily. Then decide based on that. Do you want the promotion? Yes. Will it let you still be present for Lily? She says I can work from home when needed, leave at 5:30, miss meetings if necessary. Then take it. Take the job, do amazing work, and let people speculate all they want. You've spent 5 years putting Lily first at the expense of your career. Maybe it's time to believe you can have both. What if it gets complicated? Ethan, it's already complicated. The question is whether the complication is worth it. He thanked his sister and hung up, but her words echoed in his mind for the rest of the evening. By Tuesday night, he'd made his decision. Wednesday morning, he returned to Vivian's office. "I'll take the position," he said, "on the conditions you outlined. Flexible schedule, minimal travel, work-from-home options when needed." Vivian's smile was radiant. "You won't regret this." "I hope not. We'll announce it this afternoon. HR will handle the paperwork. You start officially on Monday, but feel free to begin transitioning immediately." She paused. "Thank you, Ethan, for taking the chance. Thank you for offering it in a way I could actually accept." As he left her office for the second time that week, Ethan felt something shift inside him. For 5 years, he'd been playing it safe, choosing security over growth. Maybe it was time to bet on himself again. The announcement went out at 3 p.m., and within an hour, Ethan's inbox was flooded with congratulations from colleagues. Most were genuine. Some were clearly fishing for information about how he'd landed such a significant promotion so quickly. He ignored the speculation and focused on the work, diving into Project Meridian's codebase with fresh authority. The problems were significant but solvable. He could do this. He could lead this project and still be home for Lily's bedtime. Thursday evening, as he was packing up his laptop to head home, his desk phone rang again. "Ethan Cole." "It's me." Vivian's voice was tight. "We have a problem." His stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where someone leaked security footage from Saturday morning, of me leaving your house wearing different clothes than I arrived in. It's all over social media, and the board wants answers." Ethan's world narrowed to the sound of his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. The phone felt like lead in his hand, Vivian's words echoing through his mind on a brutal loop. Security footage, social media, the board wants answers. "How bad is it?" he managed to ask, his voice steadier than he felt. "Bad enough that I've got 3 board members demanding my resignation, and Marcus's PR team spinning it as evidence that I left him for you." Vivian's laugh was hollow. "They're calling it the real reason I canceled the wedding. Speculation about how long we've been having an affair. Someone even dug up our late-night work sessions and is framing them as secret rendezvous." Ethan closed his eyes, thinking of Lily asleep in her room at home, blissfully unaware that their quiet life was about to become a spectacle. "What do you need from me?" "The truth. What actually happened Saturday morning. I need to know we're on the same page before I face the board tomorrow." "When do you want to meet?" "Now. Can you come back up?" "Give me 5 minutes." Ethan hung up and sat motionless for a moment, trying to organize his thoughts. Around him, the office had mostly emptied out for the evening, just a few dedicated souls still hunched over their keyboards. None of them seemed to notice him, which meant the story hadn't spread internally yet. That would change by morning. He rode the elevator to the executive floor, each second of ascent feeling like a countdown to detonation. Margaret's desk was empty. She'd gone home for the day, so Ethan knocked directly on Vivian's door. "Come in." She was standing by the windows again, silhouetted against the city lights. She'd removed her suit jacket, and her hair had come partially loose from its professional styling. In the reflection on the glass, Ethan could see her face, and the exhaustion there made him ache. "Show me," he said quietly. Vivian pulled up her phone and handed it to him without a word. The video was grainy but unmistakable. Time-stamped 6:52 a.m. Saturday morning, security camera footage from somewhere on his street. Vivian walking away from his house in jeans and a sweater, her hair in a ponytail, looking nothing like the devastated woman who'd arrived the night before. The caption beneath the video read, "Vivian Ross leaving mystery man's suburban home morning after canceling wedding. Changed clothes. CEO's secret affair exposed." Below it, a thread of speculation had already spawned hundreds of comments. Some defended her, most didn't, and several had already identified his address, his name, even found his professional photo from Technova's website. "They know it's me," Ethan said, his voice flat. "As of 2 hours ago, yes. Someone cross-referenced the address with employee records." Vivian turned from the window to face him. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I tried to protect you from this. I really did." "You have nothing to apologize for. You came to a friend in crisis. That's all that happened." "That's all that happened," she repeated. "But it's not what it looks like. And in my world, perception is reality." Ethan handed back her phone. "So we tell them the truth. You canceled your wedding, you were upset, you came to someone you trusted, I let you stay in my guest room. You left the next morning. Nothing inappropriate happened. They'll ask why you? Why not a girlfriend, a family member, someone from your own social circle? Because I was someone who wouldn't judge you, someone who'd made a similar choice about what matters in life. Vivian studied him carefully. Is that all I was to you? Someone who reminded you of your own decisions? The question cut deeper than Ethan expected. He could lie, keep everything simple and professional. But after Saturday morning, after pancakes and Lily offering her elephant and Vivian crying in his hallway, lying felt wrong. No, he admitted, you were also someone I'd started to care about more than I should have. Someone I thought about outside of work hours. Someone whose laugh I looked forward to hearing during those late-night sessions. He met her eyes. But I never acted on it. Neither of us did. And that's the truth we can both stand behind. Something shifted in Vivian's expression. Relief, maybe, or recognition. The board meeting is at 9 tomorrow morning. They're going to ask me directly about our relationship, about whether I promoted you as some kind of payoff or favoritism. I need to know you can handle the scrutiny that's coming. I can handle it, but I need to prepare Lily. She's going to hear things at school, see things online when she's older. I need to protect her from as much of this as possible. Of course, Vivian's voice softened. I never wanted to bring this chaos into her life, into your life. I know, but chaos found us anyway. So now we deal with it. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of tomorrow pressing down on both of them. Finally, Vivian spoke. I should let you go home. You've got a daughter who needs you, and I've got a statement to prepare. She paused. For what it's worth, I meant what I said about the promotion. You earned it regardless of anything else. I know you did, and I'm not going to let speculation take that away from me. Ethan left her office and drove home through evening traffic, his mind already working through how to explain this to Lily. She was too young to understand the complexities, but old enough to know when something was wrong. He'd have to find words that gave her truth without fear. When he arrived home, Rachel's car was in his driveway. His sister sat on the porch steps, scrolling through her phone, and the grim set of her mouth told him she'd already seen the footage. I was going to call, Ethan said, climbing out of his car. I figured. Rachel stood, pocketing her phone. I sent Lily home with my neighbor after I picked her up from after-school care. Thought you might need a few minutes to talk without little ears listening. Thank you. They went inside and Rachel didn't waste time. How bad is it really? Bad enough that the board thinks I'm the reason Vivian canceled her wedding. Bad enough that people have already connected me to the promotion. Bad enough that by tomorrow morning, our entire lives will be under a microscope. Are you the reason she canceled? Ethan sank onto the couch, the same spot where Vivian had sat Saturday morning clutching Lily's elephant. I don't know. Maybe partially. She said working with me made her question what she wanted from life, but I didn't ask her to cancel anything. I didn't even know she was unhappy until she showed up here. Rachel sat beside him. Do you have feelings for her? That's not relevant. Ethan, it's me. Do you have feelings for her? He let out a long breath. Yeah, I do. I've been trying not to, but I do, and I think she might feel the same way. But neither of us has acted on it because she was engaged, and she's my boss, and there are about 1,000 reasons why it would be a terrible idea. And now those reasons are all over social media anyway. Exactly. Rachel was quiet, processing. Then she surprised him by smiling. You know what? Good. What? Good. I'm glad this is out in the open. You've been playing it safe for 5 years, Ethan. Refusing promotions, avoiding relationships, building a life so carefully controlled that nothing can hurt you or Lily. But that's not living. That's just surviving. Surviving is what Lily needs. Lily needs a father who's happy, who takes chances, who shows her that you can love people even when it's complicated. Rachel squeezed his shoulder. Obviously, you need to protect her from the worst of this. But don't use her as an excuse to run from something that might actually be good for both of you. You think Vivian Ross is good for us? I think someone who shows up at your door crying because she finally had the courage to choose authenticity over appearances might be exactly what you need. And I think you might be exactly what she needs too. Ethan wanted to argue, but he was too tired. The board meeting is tomorrow morning. Vivian has to defend herself, defend the promotion, convince them this isn't some scandal that will destroy the company's reputation. And will you be there? No, she needs to handle it herself, but I'll be waiting to hear how it goes. Rachel left to pick up Lily, and Ethan spent the intervening hour researching what people were saying online. The speculation ranged from sympathetic to vicious. Some people praised Vivian for following her heart. Others accused her of betrayal, manipulation, using her power to pursue a subordinate. Several thought pieces had already been published about power dynamics in the workplace and whether CEO-employee relationships could ever be ethical. When Rachel returned with Lily, his daughter bounded through the door full of stories about her day, completely oblivious to the storm gathering around them. Ethan held her tight, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, grateful for her innocence. "Daddy, you're squishing me," Lily protested, giggling. "Sorry, kiddo, just missed you today." She pulled back to look at him seriously. "Aunt Rachel said you had a hard day at work. Is everything okay?" "Everything's going to be fine, but I need to talk to you about something." They sat on the couch together, Lily tucked under his arm. Ethan chose his words carefully. "Remember Vivian, the lady who came to visit on Saturday? The pretty one who liked Mr. Snuggles?" "That's right. Well, some people are saying things about her on the internet, saying that she and I are special friends in a way that's not true. And tomorrow, those people might try to take pictures or ask questions if they see us." Lily's forehead crinkled in confusion. "Why would they do that?" "Because sometimes grown-ups like to tell stories about other grown-ups, even when the stories aren't real. It's not fair, but it happens." "That's mean." "It is. So if anyone asks you questions about Vivian or about our family, you don't have to answer them. You can just say, 'I don't want to talk about that,' and come find me, okay?" "Okay." Lily seemed to accept this easily, the way children often accepted uncomfortable truths. "Is Vivian in trouble?" "She's having a hard time, but she's strong, and she's going to be okay. Can we invite her for spaghetti dinner like I said? Maybe that would make her feel better?" Ethan's heart squeezed. "Maybe, when things calm down a little. Right now, she's very busy." They had dinner, went through the bedtime routine, and Ethan read an extra chapter of their book because he needed the comfort of Lily's warm weight against his side, her sleepy questions about the story, the normalcy of it all. After she fell asleep, he sat in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, steeling himself for tomorrow. He slept poorly, waking every few hours to check his phone. No messages from Vivian. The story was still trending, gathering momentum as it spread across platforms. By morning, mainstream news outlets had picked it up, running segments about corporate ethics and workplace relationships. Ethan got Lily ready for school with mechanical efficiency, hyper-aware of every car that passed his house, every neighbor who glanced their way. At drop-off, he noticed some of the other parents whispering, looking at him with curiosity or judgment. He ignored them and focused on Lily. "Have a great day, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy." He watched her run into the building, then sat in his car for a moment, gathering strength. His phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. "Board meeting in 30 minutes. Wish me luck." He typed back quickly. "You don't need luck. You have truth on your side. That's stronger." Her response came immediately. "Thank you for everything." Ethan drove to work, surprised to find the parking lot already buzzing with activity despite the early hour. People clustered in groups, conversations stopping when he walked past. He kept his head high, refusing to show weakness. At his desk, he dove into work, using code as refuge. The familiar logic of programming calmed him. Each problem he solved a small victory against the chaos. Around 9, the entire office seemed to hold its breath. Everyone knew the board meeting was happening. Everyone was waiting to see what would come of it. Ethan forced himself not to watch the clock. He'd know soon enough. At 10:15, his desk phone rang. Vivian's extension again. "Ethan Cole." "Can you come to my office?" Vivian's voice was strange, not upset exactly, but something else he couldn't identify. "On my way." The elevator ride felt eternal. Margaret waved him through with an expression he couldn't read. When he entered Vivian's office, she was standing by the windows again, but this time her posture was different, straighter, almost defiant. She turned, and Ethan saw something blazing in her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. "I'm still CEO," she said without preamble. "Unanimous vote to retain me in my position." Relief flooded through him. "That's incredible. What changed?" "I changed. I went into that meeting ready to defend myself, to explain away everything that happened. Instead, I told them the truth." She moved toward him, her movements sharp with contained energy. "I told them about Saturday night, about showing up at your door in crisis, about you letting me stay without asking questions, without demanding explanations, about your daughter offering me her stuffed elephant because she could see I was sad." Ethan's breath caught. "You told them about Lily?" "I told them about all of it, about working late with you and recognizing that you'd built a life based on what you loved instead of what looked good. About realizing I'd been doing the opposite for 15 years. About how that recognition made me question everything, including my wedding." What did they say? Vivian's smile was fierce. Harold Chen, the board member who's been pushing hardest for my resignation, he said, "So you're telling us you canceled a multi-billion-dollar merger because a mid-level programmer showed you what healthy priorities look like?" She laughed, and I said, "No. I'm telling you I canceled a loveless marriage because I finally understood the difference between building an empire and building a life. And if you think that makes me unfit to lead this company, then you fundamentally misunderstand what leadership requires." Ethan stared at her, stunned. "You said that to the board?" "I did. And then I told them that promoting you had nothing to do with personal feelings and everything to do with the fact that you're the best person for the job. That I would make the same decision again regardless of our friendship, because good leadership means choosing competence over optics." "And they believed you?" "They believed my conviction." Sharon Wu said something that shifted the whole room. She said, "I've watched Vivian build this company for 15 years. She's never made a decision based on emotion. Maybe it's time we trusted that she's not starting now." Vivian's voice softened. Then she said, "And maybe we should be grateful she's finally learning that being human doesn't make you weak." Ethan felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he'd been carrying since yesterday's phone call. "So what happens now?" "Now we get back to work. The story will die down eventually. People will move on to the next scandal, but I want you to know I'm not hiding anymore. Not from the board, not from the media, not from myself. If people ask about you, I'm going to tell them we're friends. Good friends. And that you've taught me more about courage than anyone I've ever met." The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. Ethan knew he should say something professional, something that maintained appropriate boundaries. Instead, what came out was raw honesty. "I keep thinking about Saturday morning, about you sitting on my couch holding Lily's elephant. You looked so lost, and I wanted to fix it, but I couldn't. All I could do was give you space to fall apart. That's all I needed. Space to be human without judgment." Vivian moved closer. "I've been performing for so long, Ethan. Every board meeting, every interview, every public appearance. It's all performance. Being CEO means being the person everyone expects you to be. But in your house, with you and Lily, I didn't have to perform. I could just be Vivian. Scared, confused, human Vivian. You can still be that person. CEO and human aren't mutually exclusive. I'm learning that, slowly." She hesitated. "There's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have said Saturday but didn't because I was afraid it would make everything more complicated." Ethan's pulse quickened. "What?" "When I said I wasn't in love with you, I lied. Or I was in denial. I'm not sure which." Vivian's eyes locked on his. "I've been falling for you for weeks, maybe longer. Every late-night session where you explained your code with such passion. Every time you left exactly at 5:30 because Lily needed you. Every terrible programmer joke that somehow made me laugh anyway. I fell for who you are, not what you could give me. And that terrified me because it meant my engagement was built on lies." Ethan couldn't breathe. "Vivian, I'm not telling you this because I expect anything," she continued quickly. "You have a daughter to protect, a life you've built carefully. I respect that. But I couldn't keep pretending I came to you purely as a friend when it was so much more complicated than that." The confession hung between them, and Ethan felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. He could step back, maintain professional distance, protect Lily from the complications of his feelings. That would be the safe choice, the smart choice. But Rachel's words echoed in his mind. Lily needs a father who's happy, who takes chances, who shows her that you can love people even when it's complicated. I fell for you too, he said quietly. Somewhere between your terrible attempts at pancakes and the way you listened to Lily talk about dinosaurs, like it was the most important conversation you'd had all week. I fell for the version of you that wasn't performing, the real you. Vivian's eyes glistened. What do we do about it? I don't know, but I think we start by being honest. With each other, with the board, with everyone. We're friends who developed feelings for each other while you were engaged to someone else. We never acted on it, but now you're not engaged anymore, and the feelings are still there. And then? And then we see where it goes. Slowly, carefully. With Lily's well-being as the priority. No grand gestures, no rushing, just seeing. A smile broke across Vivian's face, genuine and unguarded. I'd like that. The seeing. Me too. They stood close but didn't touch, both aware that this office wasn't the place, that there were still boundaries to navigate. But something had shifted fundamentally. The truth was out. Not the manufactured truth of speculation, but the real truth of two people finding unexpected connection in the middle of chaos. I should get back to work, Ethan said reluctantly. Project Meridian won't fix itself. No, it won't. Vivian's professional mask slipped back into place, but softer than before. Thank you, Ethan, for being brave enough to tell me the truth. Thank you for being brave enough to hear it. He left her office and returned to his desk, where his team lead Marcus was waiting with barely contained curiosity. So, everything okay with the CEO? Everything's fine, just discussing project timelines. Right, project timelines. Marcus didn't believe him, but he had enough social awareness not to push. Well, glad you're not fired. We actually need you on this project. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and whispered speculation. By afternoon, word had spread that Vivian had survived the board meeting, that her position was secure. The immediate crisis had passed, though Ethan knew the gossip would linger. At 5:30 exactly, he packed up his laptop and headed for the parking lot. Some things didn't change regardless of drama. Lily needed him home. When he arrived at the elementary school for pickup, he braced himself for stares and whispers. Instead, he got something unexpected. As Lily ran toward him, her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, approached with a kind smile. Mr. Cole, could I speak with you for a moment? His stomach tightened. Of course. I wanted you to know that Lily mentioned you have a friend going through a difficult time. She was very concerned about making sure this friend knew she was welcome for spaghetti dinner whenever she felt better. Mrs. Patterson's eyes were warm. I thought that was incredibly sweet. You're raising a very compassionate little girl. Ethan felt his throat close. Thank you, that means a lot. I also wanted you to know that if anyone gives you or Lily any trouble about anything circulating online, please let me know immediately. We don't tolerate gossip or bullying of any kind, and that extends to parents as well as students. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Mrs. Patterson squeezed his shoulder gently and returned to the school building. In the car, Lily chatted about her day, the butterfly they'd seen at recess, the art project she'd started, the book about dinosaurs Mrs. Patterson had read to the class. Normal things. Beautiful, normal things. Daddy, can we still invite Vivian for dinner? She asked as they pulled into their driveway. Maybe. She's very busy right now, sweetie. But she should know we still want her to come, even if people are being mean about her on the internet. Ethan glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror, this small person who saw the world with such clarity. You're right. We should let her know that. That evening, after dinner and homework and bath time, Ethan helped Lily create a card. She drew a picture of their family, Ethan, herself, and Mr. Snuggles, with a figure she identified as Vivian standing beside them, everyone holding hands. Above it, in careful kindergarten letters, she wrote, You are welcome for spaghetti. Love, Lily. Can you send it to her? Lily asked. I'll make sure she gets it. After Lily went to bed, Ethan photographed the card and sent it to Vivian with a simple message. From someone who sees what matters. Her response came 10 minutes later. Just a photo. Vivian, in what looked like her apartment, holding her phone with one hand and wiping tears with the other. No words. She didn't need any. The weekend arrived without further crisis. The media had largely moved on to other stories, though the occasional think piece still appeared about workplace relationships and power dynamics. Ethan ignored them and focused on normal life. Grocery shopping with Lily, cleaning the house, taking her to the playground. On Sunday afternoon, his doorbell rang. Ethan opened it to find Vivian standing on his porch in jeans and a sweater, holding a bouquet of purple flowers and looking nervous. "I hope it's okay that I came by," she said. "I wanted to thank Lily for her card and to accept her dinner invitation, if it's still open." Lily appeared beside Ethan, her face lighting up. "You came! Daddy, she came!" "I see that." Ethan stepped aside. "Come in. We were actually just about to start making dinner." Vivian entered, and Lily immediately took her hand, pulling her toward the kitchen. "You can help. Daddy lets me put the noodles in the water if I'm really careful." "That sounds like an important job." Ethan watched them go, Lily chattering about the proper technique for spaghetti preparation, Vivian listening with complete attention. Then he closed the door on the outside world and followed them into the warmth of his kitchen. They made dinner together, messy, chaotic, filled with Lily's running commentary and Vivian's occasional questions about ingredients. When the pasta was ready, they sat at Ethan's small kitchen table, and Lily insisted Vivian sit in the special chair that guests always got. "This is delicious," Vivian said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. "Much better than the food at the rehearsal dinner." "That's because we made it with love," Lily announced seriously. "That's what Daddy always says. Food tastes better when you make it with love." "Your daddy is very wise." After dinner, they moved to the living room, and Lily brought out her collection of dinosaur books, insisting on showing Vivian each one and explaining the key differences between herbivores and carnivores. Ethan sat in his armchair, watching his daughter educate a billionaire CEO about prehistoric creatures, and felt something settle in his chest. This was what mattered, not the speculation or the board meetings or the trending hashtags, just this moment, 3 people sharing space and warmth and genuine connection. Eventually, Lily's energy flagged, and Ethan announced bedtime. She hugged Vivian tightly before heading to her room. "Thank you for coming to dinner," Lily said. "You can come back whenever you want. You're part of our family now." Vivian's voice was thick when she responded. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a very long time." After Lily was settled in bed, Ethan returned to the living room to find Vivian standing by the window, looking out at his quiet street. "She meant it," Ethan said softly. "Lily doesn't say things she doesn't mean." "I know. That's what makes it so powerful." Vivian turned to face him. "She sees me, Ethan. Not my title, not my bank account, not the scandal surrounding me. Just me, the way you do." "Is that what you want? To be seen?" "It's what I've been missing my entire adult life. I've been so visible as Vivian Ross, CEO, that I forgot how to be visible as just Vivian." She moved closer to him. "Being here, with you and Lily, this is the first place I've felt truly seen in years." Ethan closed the distance between them, drawn by something he'd been resisting for weeks. "I see you, the brilliant CEO and the woman who can't flip pancakes, the powerful leader and the person who cries over stuffed elephants. All of it. And you don't run from that, from how complicated it is?" "I'm terrified," he admitted, "but I'm not running." Vivian reached up and touched his face, her hand warm against his cheek. "What are we doing, Ethan?" "I think we're choosing the hard thing because it's also the real thing." She kissed him then, soft and tentative, a question more than a declaration. Ethan kissed her back, and it felt like coming home and leaping off a cliff simultaneously. When they pulled apart, both of them were trembling. "That was," Vivian started. "Yeah," Ethan agreed. They stood there, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Outside, the world continued with all its complications and judgments and expectations. But inside this house, they had carved out something true and fragile and worth protecting. "I should go," Vivian whispered, making no move to leave. Probably. People will talk if my car is here too long. They're already talking. Good point. She smiled against his lips. What if I don't want to go? Then stay. We'll make coffee, talk, figure out what this is and what it could be. So she stayed, and they talked until past midnight, sitting on Ethan's worn couch with coffee mugs growing cold between them. They talked about childhoods and dreams and the paths that had led them both to this unlikely intersection. They talked about Lily and what it would mean to bring someone new into her life. They talked about the board and the company and how to navigate a relationship when one of them held all the institutional power. They didn't solve everything, but they started to build something neither of them had quite expected. Not just romance, but genuine partnership rooted in mutual recognition of each other's full humanity. When Vivian finally left at 1 a.m, Ethan stood in his doorway and watched her walk to her car. She turned back once, meeting his eyes across the distance, and smiled. He smiled back, unafraid of who might be watching, unconcerned about the optics. Because Lily had been right all along. Love tasted better when you made it with honesty, courage, and the willingness to be truly seen. The following Monday morning arrived with an email from HR that made Ethan's coffee taste like ash in his mouth. The subject line read, "Mandatory Workplace Relationship Disclosure," and the message inside was clinically professional in a way that barely concealed its true purpose: damage control. He stared at the form attached to the email, a document requiring both parties in any romantic relationship to acknowledge the company's conflict of interest policies, disclose reporting structures, and agree to immediate reassignment if the relationship created actual or perceived favoritism. At the bottom, 2 signature lines waited, one for him, one for Vivian. They'd kissed exactly once, had one long conversation that stretched past midnight, and already the machinery of corporate bureaucracy was grinding into motion, trying to categorize and control what existed between them. Ethan forwarded the email to Vivian without comment and returned to debugging the authentication module for Project Meridian. 20 minutes later, his desk phone rang. "My office," Vivian said, her voice giving nothing away. "Now, please." The elevator ride gave him time to armor himself, to prepare for whatever conversation was coming. When he entered her office, Vivian was standing behind her desk, the HR form pulled up on her computer screen. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from fighting battles on multiple fronts simultaneously. "Close the door," she said. He did, and she gestured to the chairs. They sat across from each other, the desk between them feeling like a deliberate barrier. "I got a call from Gerald Haskins this morning," Vivian began. Gerald was the company's chief legal counsel, a man whose default expression suggested he'd just bitten into a lemon. Apparently, several board members received anonymous emails over the weekend containing photographs of me leaving your house Sunday night, at 1 a.m. Ethan's stomach dropped. Someone's watching my house? Someone's building a case. The emails suggested my relationship with you represents a massive conflict of interest and potential grounds for shareholder litigation if your promotion results in any preferential treatment. Her jaw tightened. Gerald wants us to sign relationship disclosure forms, wants you moved to a different reporting structure, and wants me to recuse myself from any decisions involving your compensation or advancement. That's reasonable, Ethan said, though the words tasted bitter. We knew this would be complicated. Reasonable? Vivian's laugh was sharp. Ethan, I'm the CEO. I make final decisions on every senior position in this company. Moving you to a different reporting structure doesn't eliminate the conflict. It just makes it slightly less direct. And the moment I recuse myself from decisions about your career, everyone will know exactly why, and you'll never be able to prove you earned anything on your own merits. So, what are you suggesting? She met his eyes. I'm suggesting we end this before it destroys both our careers. The words landed like a physical blow. Ethan sat back in his chair trying to process the sudden shift. Yesterday, they'd been building something. Today, she was tearing it down. Just like that? He managed. Not just like that. Don't make it sound like I'm being casual about this. Vivian's voice cracked slightly. I haven't slept in 2 days thinking about this, about what staying together would cost you, what it would cost Lily. People are already questioning whether you earned your promotion. If we pursue a relationship, that question will follow you forever. Every success you have, people will attribute to me. Every failure, they'll blame on the distraction. Let them. I know what I've earned. But Lily doesn't. And someday she'll be old enough to read the articles, see the speculation, hear people say her father slept his way to success. Vivian's hands were shaking. I won't do that to her. I won't be the reason her childhood is scrutinized or her father's reputation is destroyed. Ethan wanted to argue, to fight, but he recognized the truth beneath her fear. Lily was already vulnerable, a child who'd lost her biological mother, been adopted by someone with no blood relation, whose life had been rebuilt from tragedy. Adding a high-profile relationship with its attendant media circus to that equation felt cruel. So we just walk away, he asked quietly. Pretend Sunday night didn't happen? We be smart. We protect what matters most. Vivian's eyes glistened. You've spent 5 years building a safe, stable life for Lily. I'm not going to be the person who destroys that because I finally figured out what I want when it's too late to have it. It's not too late. Isn't it? Look at us, Ethan. We're sitting in my office discussing legal exposure and corporate policy instead of planning a second date. That's not how love should feel. Love doesn't care about should. It just is. The word hung between them. Love, spoken aloud for the first time. Vivian closed her eyes. Don't, she whispered. Don't make this harder than it already is. I'm not trying to make it hard. I'm trying to make it real. Real has consequences. Real gets photographed and dissected and weaponized against us. I've already dragged you through one scandal. I won't subject you to a prolonged one. Ethan stood, suddenly needing distance. He walked to her window, looking out at the city sprawling below. From this height, individual people were invisible. Only buildings and streets remained, the infrastructure of a world that felt increasingly hostile to what he and Vivian had found. What if we're careful? He said. What if we keep it private, take things slowly, make sure Lily's protected? You mean hide it? Sneak around like we're doing something wrong? I mean be strategic, the same way you've been strategic about everything else in your career. Vivian joined him at the window, standing close but not touching. I've been strategic about my career at the expense of everything else. That's what got me into this mess. I don't want to be strategic about you. You deserve better than being someone's secret. I'd rather be your secret than not be yours at all. She turned to face him, and Ethan saw the war playing out behind her eyes. Duty versus desire, protection versus connection. You don't mean that. I do. Because I think what we have is worth fighting for. Worth the complications. Worth the risk. Even if it costs you professionally? Even if people always question whether you earned your position? I know what I've earned. My code speaks for itself. Let people speculate. I'll prove them wrong with results. Vivian was silent for a long moment, studying his face as if searching for cracks in his conviction. And Lily? What do we tell her when photographers start camping outside your house? When her friend's parents whisper about her father dating his boss? When she comes home crying because someone said something cruel on the playground? The scenarios weren't hypothetical. They were inevitable. Ethan knew that. But he also knew something else. Something he'd learned in 5 years of single parenthood. We tell her the truth, he said. That sometimes people are unkind about things they don't understand. That loving someone requires courage. That we choose each other not despite the complications but knowing full well what they are and deciding we're worth it anyway. He paused. And we teach her that the opinions of strangers matter less than the love of people who actually know us. That's a lot to ask of a 5-year-old. She's stronger than you think. Kids are. Vivian leaned her forehead against the window glass, her breath fogging the surface. I'm terrified, Ethan. I'm terrified of being the reason your life implodes. I'm terrified of failing at this the way I failed at every other relationship. I'm terrified that 6 months from now, you'll resent me for the scrutiny and the pressure and the way this changes everything. Ethan turned her gently to face him, his hands on her shoulders. I'm terrified too, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. That's possibly the most romantic and most foolish thing anyone's ever said to me. I contain multitudes. She laughed despite herself, a wet sound that might have been half sob. What do we do about HR? About the disclosure forms? We sign them. We acknowledge the relationship exists. We agree to whatever oversight the company needs to ensure there's no favoritism. And then we do the work anyway, proving through results that your faith in me was justified. The board won't like it. The board doesn't have to like it. They just have to accept it. Vivian pulled back slightly, her CEO mask sliding into place. If we do this, if we actually move forward, there are conditions. Name them. First, we tell Lily together. She deserves to hear it from both of us, and she deserves complete honesty about what it might mean for her life. Agreed. Second, we maintain absolute professional boundaries at work. No special treatment, no private meetings that aren't work-related, no perception that our relationship influences business decisions. That's going to be difficult given that you're my ultimate supervisor, which is why I'm going to establish an oversight committee. 3 senior leaders who will review any decisions I make regarding your position, compensation, or advancement. Complete transparency, complete accountability. Ethan nodded slowly. That's smart, but it also means putting our relationship under a microscope. We're already under a microscope. This just makes it official. Vivian's expression hardened with determination. Third condition. The moment this starts negatively impacting Lily's well-being, we reevaluate everything. Her needs come first, before mine, before yours, before what we want. Absolutely. And fourth, she paused, vulnerability breaking through her professional composure. You have to promise me you'll tell me if you start to resent this. If the scrutiny becomes too much, if you realize the cost is too high. I need you to be honest with me, even if the truth is that you want out. Same goes for you. Deal. Vivian extended her hand formally, as if they were negotiating a business contract. Ethan took it, but instead of shaking, he pulled her close and kissed her, gentle, deliberate, a promise sealed in touch rather than words. When they separated, Vivian's carefully constructed composure had fractured again. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. The board is going to lose their minds. Let them. You survived the last board meeting. You'll survive the next one. She smiled, fragile but genuine. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it. They spent the next hour crafting their response to HR, signing the disclosure forms, outlining the oversight structure Vivian proposed, setting clear boundaries for professional conduct. By the time Ethan returned to his desk, his hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline of commitment. His team lead Marcus appeared within minutes, having clearly been lurking. So? The rumor's true? You and the CEO? Ethan met his eyes steadily. Vivian and I are seeing each other, yes. Completely above board, fully disclosed to HR and the company. Any other questions? Marcus blinked, apparently not expecting such directness. Just one. Are you insane? Dating your boss, dealing with all the media attention, seems like a nightmare. Sometimes the right things look like nightmares from the outside. Philosophical. I like it. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Good luck, man. You're gonna need it. As word spread through the office, official this time, not speculation, Ethan felt the weight of eyes on him constantly. Some colleagues congratulated him quietly, others avoided him entirely, uncomfortable with the complication. A few made snide comments just loud enough to hear about sleeping your way to the top. He ignored them all and focused on the work, diving into Project Meridian with renewed intensity. If people were going to question his competence, he'd answer with code so clean and efficient they'd have no choice but to acknowledge his skill. That evening, he picked up Lily from school and drove to Vivian's apartment, a decision they'd made together that afternoon. Lily needed to hear the truth from both of them, in a private space where she could react honestly. Vivian's apartment was on the 20th floor of a luxury building downtown, all sleek lines and modern furniture that looked beautiful but unlived in. Lily's eyes went wide when they entered. Daddy, this is like a castle. It's pretty fancy, isn't it? Ethan agreed. Vivian emerged from the kitchen carrying hot chocolate, 3 mugs, one with extra marshmallows. She'd remembered Lily's preferences from their breakfast together weeks ago. They sat in the living room, Lily between them on the pristine white couch, and Ethan felt the weight of what they were about to do. This conversation would change his daughter's life. They had to get it right. Lily, sweetheart, he began. Vivian and I need to talk to you about something important. Lily looked between them, her expression solemn. Are you going to be boyfriend and girlfriend? The blunt question startled both adults. Vivian recovered first. How did you know that? She asked gently. Because Daddy smiles different when he talks about you now, and you look at him the way the prince looks at the princess in my storybook. Lily took a sip of hot chocolate. Are you? Ethan exhaled slowly. Yes, we're going to try, but we wanted to make sure you were okay with it first. Why wouldn't I be okay? Because it might change things for you, Vivian said. People might pay more attention to our family. They might ask you questions or take pictures. Some people might say unkind things because they don't understand. Lily processed this with 5-year-old logic. Like when Emma said my hair was weird and Mrs. Patterson said she was being unkind? Exactly like that. But you told me what Emma thinks doesn't matter because she doesn't know me really. Lily looked at her father. So what people say about you and Vivian doesn't matter either, right? Because they don't know you really. Ethan felt his throat tighten. That's right, kiddo, but it might still be hard sometimes. Lots of things are hard, like math homework, but we do it anyway. Vivian laughed, a surprised sound of genuine delight. You're absolutely right. We do hard things anyway. So you're going to be my other mom? Lily asked, direct as always. The question hung in the air. Vivian's face went pale. Lily, Ethan said carefully, that's not... We're just starting. Vivian and I are going to spend time together and see how things go. She's not replacing anyone. I know, my first mom is in heaven, but you said love makes families bigger, not smaller. So if Daddy loves Vivian and I love Vivian, doesn't that mean she's part of our family? Vivian's eyes filled with tears. I would be honored to be part of your family, Lily. But that's something that happens slowly, over time. Right now, I'm your dad's girlfriend and your friend. Is that okay? Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. Can you come to my school play? It's in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be a flower. I would love to come to your school play. And can we still have spaghetti dinners? Absolutely. Then it's okay. Lily returned her attention to her hot chocolate. The matter apparently settled in her mind. Ethan and Vivian exchanged glances over his daughter's head, both of them slightly stunned by how easily she'd accepted what felt monumental to them. After Lily finished her drink, she asked to see Vivian's room, and the two of them disappeared down the hallway, Lily chattering about her favorite colors and whether Vivian had any stuffed animals. Ethan sat alone in the living room, listening to their voices, and felt something shift inside him. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of belief that this impossible thing might actually work. When they returned 20 minutes later, Lily was yawning. Time to go home, sweetheart, Ethan said. Can Vivian come too? Not tonight, but we'll see her again soon. Vivian walked them to the door, and Lily hugged her tightly. Thank you for the hot chocolate, and for making Daddy smile different. Thank you for being so understanding. After Lily was buckled in the car, Ethan returned to Vivian's doorway. She stood framed in warm light, looking vulnerable in a way that made his chest ache. She's remarkable, Vivian said softly. She is. You were good with her. I was terrified. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals with more confidence than I had explaining our relationship to a 5-year-old. You did great. She loves you already. I love her too. Is that allowed? This soon? Ethan kissed her gently. There's no timeline for these things. You feel what you feel. Then I feel lucky. Terrified, but lucky. Same. The next 2 weeks unfolded in a strange new rhythm. At work, Ethan and Vivian maintained scrupulous professional boundaries. She addressed him the same way she addressed any other senior engineer. He deferred to the oversight committee on all project decisions. But after hours, they carved out moments together. Dinner at Ethan's house with Lily. A Saturday afternoon at the Children's Museum where Vivian proved surprisingly enthusiastic about interactive exhibits. Late-night phone calls after Lily was asleep, talking about everything and nothing. The scrutiny was relentless. Media outlets tracked Vivian's movements, speculated about their relationship, debated whether a CEO dating a subordinate was ethical regardless of disclosure. Think pieces multiplied. Some supported them, arguing that adults should be free to pursue happiness. Others condemned the relationship as inherently problematic given the power differential. Ethan learned to ignore his phone to avoid reading comments, to focus on what was real instead of what was speculation. But it wore on him. The constant judgment, the skepticism about his competence, the suggestion that he was using Vivian for advancement. Project Meridian became his refuge. The code didn't care about his personal life. It only cared whether the logic was sound, the architecture efficient. He poured himself into it, working late, refining every module until it sang. 3 weeks after they'd made their relationship official, the oversight committee requested a meeting. Ethan sat in the conference room with 3 senior VPs, all of them reviewing his performance metrics on Project Meridian. "Your work has been exemplary," Sharon Wu said, looking up from her tablet. "Timeline is back on track, bug count is down 40% from this time last month, and your team reports high satisfaction with your leadership approach." "Thank you. We wanted you to hear that directly from us," Gerald Haskins added, "because there's been speculation, internally and externally, about whether your promotion was merit-based. We want it clearly documented that your performance justifies your position regardless of your relationship with Ms. Ross. I appreciate that. However," Sharon continued, her tone shifting, "we also need to discuss the media attention. It's becoming a distraction. Several clients have asked about it during calls, and we've had to reassure them that Technova maintains strict ethical standards." "I understand that's frustrating," Ethan said carefully, "but I'm not sure what you expect me to do about it. Vivian and I have been completely transparent. We've followed every protocol. We can't control what the media chooses to focus on." "No, but you could choose to end the relationship, at least until the project launches and the immediate scrutiny dies down." The suggestion landed like ice water. Ethan kept his voice level. "With respect, my personal life isn't subject to committee approval. We've disclosed the relationship, accepted oversight, and maintained professional boundaries. That's all the company can reasonably ask." "Is it?" Gerald leaned forward. "When your personal life affects company reputation, it becomes a business concern. Then I guess you need to decide whether my work is valuable enough to outweigh the inconvenience of people being interested in my relationship." Ethan stood, "Because I'm not ending it. And if that's a problem, then we should discuss my departure from Technova, not my departure from Vivian's life." He walked out before they could respond, adrenaline making his hands shake. By the time he reached his desk, his phone was already ringing. Vivian's extension. "What did you do?" she asked, and he couldn't tell if she was angry or impressed. "I told them I wouldn't choose between you and my job." "Ethan, I know. I probably just sabotaged my career, but I meant what I said. I'm not going to let fear dictate my choices anymore." She was quiet for a long moment. "Come to my office." When he arrived, she was standing by the window again, her thinking spot, apparently. But this time, when she turned to face him, she was smiling. "I just got off the phone with Sharon," Vivian said. "Do you know what she told me? That I'm insubordinate? That you just proved exactly why I promoted you. She said, and I quote, 'Anyone willing to walk away from a position rather than compromise their integrity is exactly the kind of leader we need.'" Vivian crossed to him. "You just earned more respect from the Oversight Committee in 5 minutes than most people earn in years. I wasn't trying to earn respect. I was trying to keep you." "I know, that's what made it powerful." She touched his face gently. "You've been proving yourself to everyone since this started. Maybe it's time to stop proving and start just being. Is that allowed?" "I'm the CEO. I'll allow it." Lily's school play arrived on a Wednesday evening. Ethan sat in the elementary school auditorium surrounded by other parents, and beside him sat Vivian, who'd left a board meeting early to be there. Several people noticed, whispered, took photos. Ethan ignored them and focused on the stage where Lily stood in a flower costume she'd helped make, speaking her 3 lines with solemn concentration. When the play ended, Lily ran to them both, and Vivian swept her up in a hug without hesitation. Someone's camera flashed. Tomorrow, that photo would probably be analyzed online, the CEO and the engineer and the little girl who connected them. But right now, in this moment, it was just family. "You were perfect," Vivian told Lily. "I remembered all my words." "You did. I'm so proud of you." They went for ice cream after. The 3 of them squashed into a booth at Lily's favorite shop and talked about the play and kindergarten drama and whether dinosaurs would have liked ice cream. Normal things. Real things. Walking back to the car, Lily between them holding both their hands, Ethan felt something settle in his chest. The scrutiny hadn't disappeared. The complications hadn't resolved. But they'd found a way to exist inside the chaos. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but authentically. That night, after Lily was asleep, Vivian stayed. They sat on Ethan's couch with wine. Neither of them was really drinking, and she leaned her head on his shoulder. "I have another board meeting next week," she said quietly. "They're voting on my contract renewal, 2 years early, because of everything that's happened. Are you worried?" "Surprisingly, no. I've realized something these past few weeks. If they vote to remove me because I chose authenticity over appearances, then Technova isn't the company I thought I was building, and maybe that's okay. What would you do if they let you go?" "I have no idea." She laughed softly. "Terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Welcome to my world." "Your world is pretty good, actually." "Yeah," Ethan agreed, pulling her closer. "It really is." The board meeting came and went. Vivian's contract was renewed, 7 votes to 5, the same margin as before, but holding steady. Not unanimous approval, but enough to move forward. Project Meridian launched on schedule, to strong reviews and immediate client adoption. The trade publications praised the clean architecture, the intuitive interface, the seamless integration. Ethan's name appeared in several articles, not as the CEO's boyfriend, but as the lead architect who delivered exceptional work under pressure. Slowly, incrementally, the narrative began to shift. They were still news, still scrutinized, still subject to judgment, but underneath the noise, they were also just 2 people building a life together, one careful day at a time. And that, Ethan realized, was enough. 6 months after Project Meridian's launch, Ethan found himself standing in Vivian's office at 7 in the morning, watching her pace back and forth in front of the windows like a caged animal. She'd called him up before most of the building had even unlocked, her voice tight with an emotion he couldn't quite identify over the phone. "I'm stepping down," she said without preamble, not even looking at him. "I'm resigning as CEO." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What? Why? Did something happen with the board?" "No, the opposite, actually." Vivian finally stopped pacing and turned to face him. Her eyes were bright, not with tears, but with something that looked almost like excitement. "They offered me a contract extension. 5 more years, significant compensation increase, full authority to restructure the executive team however I want. Everything I've worked toward for 15 years handed to me on a silver platter." "And you're turning it down?" "I'm turning it down." She moved toward him, her movements charged with nervous energy. "Because I woke up this morning and realized I've been asking myself the wrong question. I keep asking, can I do this job while also having a life? But the real question is, do I want to?" Ethan sank into one of her chairs, trying to process this. "What do you want?" "I want to have breakfast with you and Lily without checking my phone every 30 seconds. I want to go to every school play and parent-teacher conference without leaving board meetings early. I want to build something that doesn't require sacrificing every personal relationship I have on the altar of shareholder value." She knelt in front of him, taking his hands. "I want a life, Ethan, a real one. And I finally understand that I can't have it while running a 15,000-person company. You've built Technova from the ground up. It's your legacy." "No, it's my past. And I'm ready for a different future." "What will you do?" Vivian's smile was nervous but genuine. "I have some ideas. Consulting, maybe. Investing in startups founded by people who actually believe in work-life balance. Writing a book about leadership that doesn't require destroying yourself in the process. I don't know exactly, but for the first time in my adult life, I'm okay with not knowing." Ethan pulled her up and into his arms, feeling her trembling against him. "When are you telling them?" "Today. I'm giving them 6 months to find a replacement, enough time to ensure a smooth transition. By Christmas, I'll be a free woman." "How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, like I'm jumping off a cliff and sprouting wings at the same time." She pulled back to look at him. "Are you okay with this? I know dating a CEO came with certain complications, but dating an unemployed former CEO might come with different ones." Ethan laughed. "Vivian, I fell in love with you, not your title. If anything, this makes things easier, says the man who'll still have to deal with oversight committees and disclosure forms. Actually, about that, Ethan took a breath, deciding. I've been thinking about making a change too. Not as dramatic as yours, but significant. I want to go back to individual contributor work, give up the lead architect position. Why? You've been brilliant at it. Because managing people isn't what I love. Coding is. Building elegant solutions to complex problems is. And I'm tired of proving myself to oversight committees and defending my qualifications to people who've already decided I only got promoted because I'm sleeping with you. He squeezed her hands. I want to do work that speaks for itself. And I want more time with Lily. The past 6 months, I've been spread too thin, trying to lead a team, manage a high-profile project, navigate our relationship, and still be present for my daughter. Something's got to give, and I'd rather it be the prestige than the presence. Vivian studied his face carefully. You're sure? This isn't about me leaving? It's about both of us choosing the lives we actually want instead of the lives that look good from the outside. Ethan smiled. You taught me that. Time I lived it fully. They stood together in her office as the sun rose over the city, two people who'd built impressive careers now choosing to step back from them in pursuit of something more fundamental. It should have felt like failure. Instead, it felt like freedom. Vivian's announcement sent shockwaves through Technova and the broader tech industry. The media speculation was immediate and predictable. Most assumed she'd been forced out because of the relationship scandal, that the board had given her a dignified exit rather than a public firing. Vivian held a press conference and set the record straight with characteristic clarity. I'm leaving because I've realized that being an exceptional CEO requires a level of personal sacrifice I'm no longer willing to make, she told the assembled reporters. I've spent 15 years building a company at the expense of building a life. That was my choice, and I don't regret it. But I'm making a different choice now. I'm choosing presence over prestige, connection over compensation, love over legacy. The questions came fast and pointed. Was she leaving because of Ethan Cole? Was the board pressure too much? Did she feel she'd failed as a leader? I'm not leaving because of external pressure, Vivian said firmly. I'm leaving because of internal clarity. And no, I haven't failed as a leader. I've succeeded so thoroughly that Technova will continue to thrive without me. That's what good leadership looks like. Building something sustainable, not something dependent on your constant presence. One reporter, bolder than the rest, asked directly about her relationship. Are you choosing Ethan Cole over your career? Vivian's smile was genuine. I'm choosing a full life over a half-lived one. Ethan is part of that life, yes. So is his daughter Lily. So is having time to discover who I am outside of a corner office. I'm not choosing one thing over another. I'm choosing everything that makes me human. Ethan watched the press conference from his desk, surrounded by colleagues who'd gone silent as Vivian spoke. When she finished, the office erupted in whispered conversations. Some people looked inspired. Others looked confused. A few looked judgmental. Marcus appeared at his cubicle. Well, that's going to be in the business school case studies for the next decade. Probably. You okay with it? With her leaving? More than okay. Proud. Proud of a CEO walking away from a multi-billion-dollar company? Ethan met his eyes steadily. Proud of a human being choosing authenticity over expectation. Yeah. Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. You two are either completely insane or the sanest people I've ever met. Haven't decided which yet. That evening, Ethan picked up Lily from school and drove to Vivian's apartment. She texted him earlier asking if they could have dinner together, just the three of them, and there was something in her message that suggested this wasn't just a casual meal. When they arrived, Vivian had transformed her usually pristine kitchen into something chaotic and wonderful. Flour dusted the countertops, a mixing bowl sat lopsided in the sink, and the smell of slightly burnt garlic bread filled the air. You cooked? Ethan asked, genuinely surprised. I attempted to cook. There's a significant difference. Vivian gestured to the dining table, which was set with careful attention, cloth napkins, flowers in a vase, candles waiting to be lit. I wanted tonight to feel special. Lily ran to inspect the table. Are we celebrating? We are. We're celebrating new beginnings. Dinner was imperfect in the best way. The pasta was slightly overdone. The garlic bread was definitely burnt on the edges, but the salad was surprisingly good. They ate and talked, and Lily told a long, rambling story about a boy in her class who'd brought a pet turtle for show and tell. After dinner, while Lily colored at the coffee table, Vivian pulled Ethan onto her balcony. The city spread out below them, all lights and movement, and endless possibility. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice nervous. "And I need you to really hear it, not just listen." "Okay." "These past 6 months with you and Lily, they've been the happiest of my life. Not the most successful, not the most prestigious, but the most real. The most me." She took his hands. "You've shown me what it looks like to build a life around love instead of achievement, to measure worth by presence instead of productivity. And I want that. I want it so much that I'm willing to completely rebuild my identity to have it." "Vivian, let me finish. I know we've only been together 6 months. I know that's not very long in the grand scheme of things. But I also know that I've learned more about who I am and who I want to be in these 6 months than I learned in the previous 15 years. And what I've learned is that I want to build a life with you, not someday, not eventually, but intentionally and deliberately, starting now." Ethan's heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I love Lily. I'm saying I want to be part of your family in whatever way makes sense. I know I can't replace Sarah, and I wouldn't try, but I can be present. I can show up. I can love both of you with everything I have." "I love you too," Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have for months. But I didn't want to rush you, didn't want to add pressure when you were already dealing with so much. I don't feel rushed. I feel certain." Vivian smiled through tears that had started falling. "I spent 15 years being strategic about every decision. I don't want to be strategic about this. I just want to be honest and present and all in." They kissed as the sun set over the city, and Ethan felt something click into place, not just between them, but inside himself. For 5 years, he'd been building a life defined by caution and protection. And while that had been necessary, it had also been limiting. Vivian wasn't asking him to abandon his careful approach to life. She was asking him to expand it, to make room for the possibility that love could be both careful and courageous. That night, after they'd gone back inside and Lily had fallen asleep on Vivian's couch mid-coloring session, Ethan carried his daughter to the car and drove home through quiet streets. In the rearview mirror, he could see Lily's peaceful face, completely secure in the knowledge that she was loved and safe. The next 6 months unfolded like a slow exhale. Vivian transitioned out of her CEO role with the same competence she'd brought to everything else, mentoring her replacement and ensuring Technova's continued success. Ethan stepped back into senior engineer work, taking on complex problems that required deep technical expertise rather than people management. The Oversight Committee was dissolved since he no longer reported to Vivian in any capacity. The media attention gradually faded, replaced by newer scandals and more current dramas. Occasionally, a think piece would reference them as a cautionary tale or an inspirational story, depending on the author's perspective. They stopped reading the articles. Life became beautifully ordinary. Weeknight dinners where Vivian's cooking slowly improved from disaster to merely mediocre. Weekend adventures to museums and parks and the beach. Lily's 6th birthday party, where Vivian helped organize a dinosaur-themed extravaganza that left the house covered in green streamers and plastic fossils for weeks. Quiet evenings after Lily's bedtime, talking about everything and nothing. Vivian started consulting for startups, focusing on helping founders build sustainable companies rather than venture-funded rockets designed to burn bright and crash. She discovered she loved mentoring more than managing, teaching more than directing. She also started writing a book about leadership and authenticity, working on it in the mornings at Ethan's kitchen table while he coded, and Lily got ready for school. One Saturday morning in early spring, almost a year after that first knock on his door, Ethan woke to find his bed empty. He followed the sound of voices to the kitchen, where Vivian and Lily were making pancakes, actually making them, not burning them, and laughing about something he'd missed. "Daddy," Lily called when she saw him. "Vivian taught me the flip trick. Watch." He watched his daughter expertly flip a pancake, Vivian's hands hovering nearby in case of disaster but not interfering. The kitchen smelled like butter and vanilla. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and Ethan realized with sudden, overwhelming clarity that this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but real. That afternoon, while Lily was at a friend's birthday party, Ethan took Vivian to the park where he'd scattered some of Sarah's ashes 5 years ago. They sat on a bench overlooking the pond, and Ethan told her stories about Sarah he'd never shared with anyone. Not the sanitized version he offered when people asked about Lily's mother, but the real, messy, complicated truth of who Sarah had been. "She would have liked you," he said finally. "Not at first, probably. She'd have thought you were too polished, too corporate. But eventually, she'd have seen through that to who you really are, and she'd have approved." I wish I could have known her. Me too. She was brilliant and infuriating and so full of life. Right up until the end, she was making plans, telling jokes, refusing to let cancer define her. Ethan took Vivian's hand. When she updated her will to make me Lily's guardian, she wrote me a letter. I've never shown it to anyone. You don't have to show me. I want to. He pulled out his phone where he'd photographed the letter years ago, too afraid to carry the original in case he lost it. She wrote, "Ethan, you're going to be a wonderful father, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. Don't let fear make you small. Don't let grief make you careful. Lily needs someone who shows her that love is worth the risk of loss. Promise me you'll keep being brave enough to love her fully and brave enough to love someone else when you're ready." Vivian's tears were falling freely now. She sounds remarkable. She was, and she was right. I did let fear make me small for a while. I built a life so carefully controlled that nothing could hurt us. But nothing could truly reach us either. He turned to face Vivian fully. You reached us. You reminded me that Sarah's last request wasn't to keep Lily safe from everything. It was to keep being brave enough to love fully. I'm not trying to replace her. I know. You couldn't if you tried, but you don't have to. There's room in our lives for both, for honoring who Sarah was and building something new with you. They sat in silence for a while, watching ducks glide across the pond. Finally, Vivian spoke. I have something I need to ask you, something I've been thinking about for months but didn't know how to bring up. Ask, would you and Lily consider moving in with me? Not to my apartment, that place has never felt like home, but maybe we could find somewhere together. A house big enough for all of us, with a yard for Lily and space for your work and room for me to write. Somewhere that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. Ethan's heart stuttered. That's a big step. I know, and if it's too soon, we can wait. But I don't want to keep living separately, dividing our time between two places. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to be there for Lily's bedtime every night. I want us to build a life together, literally under one roof. What about Lily? Shouldn't we ask her first? Vivian smiled. I already did. Last week, when we were making cookies, I asked her how she'd feel about all of us living together. She said, and I quote, "That would be good because then you could read me bedtime stories too, and Daddy's voices for the characters are getting boring." Ethan laughed, the sound startled out of him. She said my voices are boring? Apparently you do all the dragons the same way. I do not do all the dragons the same way. I'm just reporting what I heard. Vivian's expression turned serious. But she also said she'd like having me around all the time, that it would feel like a real family. It already is a real family. I know. But living together would make it official, visible, permanent. She hesitated. Is that what you want? Ethan thought about his small house, the home he'd built from the ashes of his previous life. He'd been so proud of that house, of the sanctuary he'd created for Lily. But Vivian was right. It was time for something new, something they built together. Yes, he said simply. That's what I want. They spent the next 3 months house hunting, a process made chaotic by Lily's very specific requirements. The house needed a big backyard for dinosaur games, a room that could be painted purple, and ideally a tree suitable for a treehouse. Vivian had her own requirements, a home office with good light, a kitchen large enough to actually learn to cook properly, and a neighborhood with good schools. Ethan just wanted space that felt like love. They found it in an older neighborhood on the edge of the city, a craftsman-style house with hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves, and a backyard dominated by an enormous oak tree. It needed work, and it was smaller than what Vivian could have afforded on her own. But the moment they walked through the door, all three of them knew. "This is it," Lily announced, running from room to room. "This is our house." They moved in during summer, a process that involved combining Ethan's modest furniture with Vivian's expensive pieces and discovering that very little of it actually matched. They kept the worn couch from Ethan's living room, the one where Vivian had sat that first morning holding Mr. Snuggles. They kept Vivian's dining table because it was big enough for family dinners and homework sprawl. They bought new beds for everyone, a fresh start. Lily's room was painted purple, naturally. Ethan's office became a shared workspace where he coded in the mornings and Vivian wrote in the afternoons, their desks facing each other across the room. The backyard became Lily's kingdom, complete with a sandbox and a swing set and plans for that treehouse once they figured out if either of them had any construction skills. 2 months after moving in, on a random Tuesday evening after dinner, Ethan found himself standing in the kitchen washing dishes while Vivian dried. Lily was in the living room, supposedly doing homework, but actually teaching Mr. Snuggles about fractions. It was completely ordinary, completely perfect. "I want to marry you," Ethan said, not planning to, the words just emerging. Vivian nearly dropped the plate she was drying. "What?" "I want to marry you. Not because it's the next logical step, or because we've been together long enough, or because society expects it. I want to marry you because every day I wake up grateful that you knocked on my door that night. Because you've made our family bigger without making anyone smaller. Because Lily lights up when you walk in the room. Because I love who I am when I'm with you." He turned off the water and faced her fully. "I don't have a ring. I didn't plan this, but I'm certain. So Vivian Ross, will you marry me?" Vivian set down the plate carefully, her hands shaking. "You're serious?" "Completely. You want to marry me. The woman who showed up at your house in the middle of the night, crying in a designer dress, running from her own wedding. I want to marry the woman who had the courage to choose what was real over what looked perfect. The woman who learned to make pancakes and read bedtime stories and love a daughter who isn't biologically hers. Yes, I want to marry you." "Then yes," Vivian laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you. Obviously, yes." They kissed in the kitchen, dish soap still on their hands, and from the living room, Lily's voice called out, "Are you guys kissing again? That's gross." "We're engaged," Vivian called back. Silence. Then Lily appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "Does that mean you're getting married?" "Yes." "Does that mean Vivian will be my stepmom?" Ethan knelt down to Lily's level. "If that's okay with you, she won't replace your first mom. Nobody could. But she'll be another person who loves you completely." Lily considered this seriously, then nodded. "Okay, but I get to be the flower girl, and I want to wear purple." "Deal," Vivian said. They planned a small wedding, nothing like the spectacle Vivian's first attempt would have been. Just family and close friends, held in their backyard under the oak tree. Lily insisted on helping with everything, choosing flowers, addressing invitations, taste testing cake samples with the gravity of a professional critic. The week before the wedding, Ethan's sister Rachel arrived to help with final preparations. She found him in the backyard, supervising as Lily directed the placement of chairs with the authority of a tiny general. "You look happy," Rachel observed. "I am." "Scared at all?" "Terrified. But not of marrying Vivian, just of how much I have to lose if something goes wrong." Rachel put her arm around him. "That's what love is, little brother. Having something so good you're terrified of losing it. But you don't let that fear stop you from fully committing. Sarah knew that. It's why she wrote that letter. I wish she could be here." "She is. Every time you love bravely instead of carefully, every time you choose presence over protection, she's here." The wedding day arrived with perfect September weather. Warm sun, cool breeze, leaves just starting to turn gold. Ethan stood under the oak tree in his best suit, his hand shaking slightly, and watched Lily walk down the makeshift aisle, scattering purple flower petals with intense concentration. Then Vivian appeared, and Ethan forgot to breathe. She wore a simple cream dress, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd almost worn a year ago. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was barefoot in the grass, and she'd never looked more beautiful. She walked toward him alone, not given away by anyone, because she was choosing this herself. When she reached him, she took his hands, and Ethan saw his entire future in her eyes. The ceremony was brief and personal. They'd written their own vows, and when it was Ethan's turn to speak, he looked at this woman who'd shattered into his life and somehow made him whole. Vivian, a year ago you came to my door in crisis, and I had no idea that opening it would change everything. You've taught me that courage looks like choosing authenticity over appearances, that strength looks like admitting when the life you've built doesn't fit anymore, that love looks like showing up every day, learning to make terrible pancakes, and reading bedtime stories with funny voices. The crowd laughed softly. I promise to keep being brave enough to build this life with you, to choose presence over protection, to love you and Lily with everything I have, to remind you who you are when the world tries to tell you who you should be. Vivian wiped tears from her eyes. Ethan, you gave me shelter when I had nowhere else to go, but more than that, you gave me space to be human. You've shown me what it looks like to build a life around love instead of achievement, to measure worth by presence instead of productivity, to parent with patience and lead with integrity and choose what's real over what's easy. She glanced at Lily, who was watching with rapt attention. I promise to love you and Lily fiercely and fully, to keep learning how to be present, to honor Sarah's memory by being brave enough to love openly, to build a family where everyone feels seen and valued and safe to be exactly who they are. When they kissed, Lily cheered loudly, and everyone laughed, and Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that late-night knock to this backyard celebration. All the fear and scrutiny and doubt, all worth it for this moment. The reception was casual and joyful, full of music and dancing and speeches that made everyone cry and laugh in equal measure. Rachel told embarrassing stories about Ethan's childhood. Sharon Wu gave a surprisingly moving toast about watching Vivian transform from a brilliant but emotionally distant CEO into a fully present human being. And Lily, when given the microphone, simply said, "I'm glad Vivian came to our house that night, because now I have two parents instead of one, and that's better." As the sun set and guests mingled, Ethan found Vivian standing alone by the oak tree, watching the celebration with a soft smile. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Beyond measure." She leaned back against him. "I keep thinking about the person I was a year ago, running from my own wedding, terrified and lost, showing up at your door with no plan beyond escaping. If someone had told me then that a year later I'd be here, married to you, stepmother to Lily, living in a house that needs renovation, working on a book instead of running a company, I wouldn't have believed them." "Do you miss it? The company? The power? The prestige?" "Not even a little. I thought that world defined me, but it was just where I worked. This..." She gestured to the backyard full of people they loved, to Lily, dancing with Rachel, to the house they'd made into a home. "This is who I am, and it's so much better than anything I built before." Ethan turned her in his arms. "You know what today is? Besides our wedding day?" "What?" "Exactly 1 year since you knocked on my door." Vivian's eyes widened. "Is it really?" "Really. A year ago tonight, you showed up in crisis, and now here we are." "Here we are," she echoed. "Married, happy, home." Lily ran over then, demanding they come dance, and they let themselves be pulled into the celebration. They danced as the stars came out, as the light strung through the oak tree glowed warm, as their family and friends celebrated the courage it had taken for both of them to choose this life. Later, after the guests had left and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch wrapped in someone's jacket, Ethan and Vivian sat on the back steps, surveying the beautiful mess of their wedding reception. "We should clean up," Vivian said, making no move to do so. "We should," Ethan agreed, equally still. They sat in comfortable silence, fingers intertwined. Ethan thought about the journey they'd traveled, from CEO and mid-level engineer to partners in every sense of the word, from scandal and scrutiny to this quiet moment of peace. "Do you think people understand?" Vivian asked quietly. "Why we made the choices we made? Why I left Technova? Why you stepped back from leadership? Why we chose this smaller, quieter life? Some do, some don't. Does it matter? No, I suppose it doesn't. She smiled. We know what we chose and why. That's enough. The next morning, Ethan woke to find Vivian's side of the bed empty again. He followed the now familiar sound of voices to the kitchen, where his wife, and his daughter were making breakfast together, arguing cheerfully about whether chocolate chips counted as a legitimate breakfast food. They do if it's a special day, Lily was insisting. Is today a special day? Vivian asked. Every day is special when we're together. Vivian caught Ethan's eye across the room, and he saw his own wonder reflected there. This was it. This was the life they'd chosen. Not perfect, not prestigious, but profoundly real, built on courage and authenticity and the willingness to walk away from what looked good in pursuit of what felt true. 2 years later, Technova would invite Vivian back as a board advisor, recognizing that her perspective on sustainable leadership and work-life integration was more valuable than ever. She'd accept, on her own terms, maintaining boundaries that protected her family while contributing her expertise to help others avoid her mistakes. Ethan's code would be featured in a major industry conference, his approach to elegant problem-solving becoming a case study in technical schools. He'd turned down 3 different offers to return to management, comfortable in his choice to stay hands-on with the work he loved. Lily would grow up knowing she had a father who'd chosen presence and a stepmother who'd chosen authenticity, both of them modeling that courage looks like building the life you actually want instead of the life you think you should want. And sometimes, late at night when Lily was asleep and the house was quiet, Ethan and Vivian would sit together and remember that first knock on the door. The moment when their worlds collided, when crisis became opportunity, when 2 people brave enough to question their paths found each other and chose to build something new. But that morning, watching his daughter and his wife debate breakfast choices in their kitchen, in their house, in their life together, Ethan simply poured coffee and joined them. Because some moments didn't need to be remembered or analyzed or contextualized. They just needed to be lived. Fine, Vivian was saying, chocolate chips count as breakfast. But we're also having fruit. Deal. Daddy, Vivian said yes to chocolate chips. I heard. Your negotiation skills are getting scary good. Lily grinned. Vivian's teaching me. She says negotiation is an important life skill. She's right. Ethan wrapped an arm around Vivian's waist, kissing her temple. She's usually right about most things. Usually? I'm always right. Vivian's eyes sparkled with humor. See? Perfect negotiation technique. State your position with absolute confidence. They made breakfast together, the 3 of them moving around each other with practiced ease, and Ethan thought about how far they'd traveled from that night a year ago. How much courage it had taken for Vivian to knock on his door. How much faith it had taken for him to open it. But courage and faith, he'd learned, were muscles that strengthened with use. Every day they chose to be present instead of perfect, authentic instead of appropriate. They got braver. Every morning they woke up in this imperfect, beautiful life they'd built together. They proved that walking away from what looks perfect is sometimes the only way to find what truly is. After breakfast, Lily dragged them both outside to work on the treehouse project they'd been planning. Ethan had finally admitted he had no construction skills, so they'd hired someone to help, but Lily insisted on supervising every step. As the morning sun warmed the backyard and Lily issued instructions with the gravity of a foreman, Vivian leaned close to Ethan. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For opening the door, for not turning me away, for seeing who I could be instead of just who I was. Ethan pulled her close. Thank you for knocking, for being brave enough to run towards something real instead of away from something wrong, for teaching me that safety isn't the same as happiness. We're pretty good at this, aren't we? This whole choosing each other thing. We're the best, Ethan agreed. From across the yard, Lily called out, Less kissing, more treehouse building. Come on! They laughed and went to join her, and the day unfolded in the beautiful, ordinary way that real life does. There would be challenges ahead, there always were. Questions to navigate, decisions to make, complications to manage. But they'd face them together, with courage borrowed from each other and a foundation built on truth. Because that's what happened when you chose the life that was real over the life that looked perfect. You didn't get a fairy tale ending. You got something better, A real ending, where flawed people loved each other bravely, built imperfect lives with intention, and proved every day that the courage to be authentic was the greatest success of all. And sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet and they lay tangled together in bed, Vivian would think about the woman she'd been, the CEO in the designer dress, running from her own wedding with no destination in mind. She'd think about the desperation that had driven her to Ethan's door, the vulnerability of that moment when she'd said, "I didn't know where else to go." She'd been looking for shelter, she'd found home, and Ethan, holding his wife in the darkness of their bedroom, would sometimes think about the knock that changed everything, how he'd stood at the door knowing that opening it would complicate his carefully controlled life, and chose to open it anyway. He'd been offering refuge. He'd found family. Together they discovered that the bravest thing you can do is not build a perfect life. It's build a real one. And then choose it, every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because that's what love is. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Not the guarantee of happily ever after, but the commitment to happily right now, and now, and now again. And in the quiet of their home, in the life they'd built from courage and crisis and one desperate knock on a door, they'd found their truth. This was enough. This was everything. This was real. And real, they'd learned, was always better than perfect.